Well. Good evening, soul butterflies. I trust you're having a great evening this evening. You are listening to Soma Fusion Radio with your host, Katie Kamara, coming to you live from the nation's capital, Washington, D.C. We are broadcasting to you live worldwide this fine evening on Facebook at somafusion.com. YouTube and the official Global Enlightenment Radio Network.com website. For those who don't know who I am or what I do outside of this radio show, to which many have referred to me as their guardian angel and inspiration for their dreams, I am an international author, life coach practitioner specializing in interpersonal relationships, executive coaching, and a multidisciplinary in psychology and alternative therapies. I'm also the founder of Soma Fusion, Mind, Body, and Soul, and the Soma Fusion Academy. And tonight there's much to discuss on Soma Fusion Radio, and I hope you have your pens and paper handy, and if you do not have that handy, just grab a glass of wine, grab your blankie, or not blankie because everything's hot right now, and just listen to, because you can catch the archive of this show later. First, we got to get this aside. The official advertisers of Soma Fusion Radio is Conscious Apparel Co. And Conscious Apparel Co. has stepped in the forefront of expanding consciousness through fashion. Whether it's the mantra tees, platonic solids, hoodies, conscious baby onesies, Conscious Apparel Co. prides itself in providing aesthetic apparel that performs the role of elevating consciousness and spreading love. You can go and find them at consciousapparel.com, and we have a promo code for you. We are all one word, for 20% off of all of their apparel. We're also supported by ASEA. ASEA's products are the first and only source outside the body to provide balanced, stabilized, redoxing signals molecules which promote health at a cellular level. You can go find them at 1-800-285-370.myasealive.com. We're also supported by Santosha Co. Santosha Co. is a new, fresh skincare company that specializes in natural and organic skincare products. The majority of the ingredients that go into their products are handpicked from their farm in northern Wisconsin. You can see them at Santosha.co. We're also supported by FNX FNX Fitness. They're located in North Salt Lake, Utah. They're committed to creating innovative supplements of the highest quality that provide focus for a productive morning, energy to thrive all day, performance supplements to reach new goals, unique sleep and recovery formulas to support any sport, and healthy supplements to support an active lifestyle for years to come. To find those guys is fnxfit.com. If you support me and my work, you can make a donation via PayPal or at the Patreon site at patreon.com/SomaFusion. I want to shout out to my dear friends at PSN Radio Network, Andrew Espino here in the United States, and World Pirate Radio Network, Jeffy Ryder in Seoul, South Korea. I have a few big announcements to make tonight. Actually, Soma Fusion has a lot of things going on right now, and the Soma Fusion brand is growing very, very fast. On the 19th of June, I will be a special Friday night feature guest on World Pirate Radio Network in Seoul, South Korea at 11 p.m. Eastern with Jeffy Ryder. Jeffy Ryder is a freelance journalist, indie musician, and media promoter. You can find those guys at WPRPN.com. Soma Fusion Academy has now opened its doors, and I'm pleased to announce this, and I do encourage you to come and join my challenges, enrich your mind and grow together with the full support of other members of the Soma Fusion Academy by actively engaging with myself and the people that are in there. Be reminded that you are not alone in your journey of personal development and the enrichment of your life. You are loved and a valued member of the Soma Fusion community. And that goes for the same for all you listeners out there who do listen to this show. Just to go over the Soma Fusion website, you've got to click on the Soma Fusion Academy link in the menu, where you will find instructions to get the Soma Fusion app. You must follow the instructions and download the Wix app. You will have access to daily updates, courses, exclusive daily challenges, exclusive weekly motivational messages, academy resources, and Soma Fusion Community Forum. And additional, I am adding in coaching and therapy services for you all. On the 1st of June, we have the 21-day mindfulness challenge, which will be starting, which is there to provide you balancing and to help you provide a stronger foundation to deal with the stresses that happen in your life. So you need to join this challenge. It's a 21-day program introducing mindfulness and meditation. You will get daily prompts explaining how to do sitting meditation plus mindfulness checks at the end of each day. I will also be doing on the 22nd of June a 30 challenges for 30 days. These are for individuals that are committed to daily self-improvement. And if you are one of those people who is constantly working on their self-improvement, you want to try this one out. So all you got to do is just choose the challenge that you want for the day and keep doing it for 30 days on. And it will be an ongoing program that I will be doing. So the first one starts on the 22nd of June. I'm also doing on the 6th of July, the 30-day intimacy challenge. The truth is, a lot of people are having trouble with intimacy, and I'm not just talking about sex. I'm talking about the enrichment of intimacy in each of our relationships. Consider what we have as habits, and see if we can try and provide you the information and the challenge that would benefit you and your relationship to enrich or enhance your intimacy. And so these challenges will all include daily audio meditations, motivational messages from me. You will have guided meditations as well, thought-provoking journal questions to anchor the day's teachings, articles, videos, tips, and create a thriving practice for yourself. Soon I will also be launching my self-development courses, and that is Mastery of Self. So that's obviously self-explanatory. Self-mastery, Mastery of Calm Consciousness, which is a course all about mindfulness and meditation. Mastery of Connected Consciousness, which is all about interdependence of relationships, whether it be your partner, your friends, your family, anybody that is familiar to you, to recenter yourself, to provide balance. And Master of Creative Consciousness is all about executive mastery and leadership. And the fifth one that I have is Mastery of Abundant Consciousness Transformation. It's all about your journey into abundance, transformation, transcendence, and oneness. So it is a spiritual mastery course. For all information, you can email me with your queries at somafusionacademy@gmail.com. Again, you can go over to the soma-fusion.com website and download the app, and you can also talk to me or reach me through there. Now, as we know, I am a radio show host who likes to raise awareness and educate to empower others to reach their individual potential, mind, body, and soul. I also have my own personal studies which I explore in religion, theology, sociology, pseudoscience versus science, ontology, occult studies, ancient history, ancient civilizations, ancient philosophy and hidden secrets, cosmology, semiology, linguistics, anthropology, and all things psychology. And you'll discover many more as I go on. I keep mentioning something different every single week. Now, you'll notice a theme as I go on with these shows that every single topic that I do is entwined with each other. And lastly, my biggest topic is quantum everything, which is why tonight I'm continuing the quantum series again from a different perspective. One thing I love is to delve into the hard topics, especially those that are extremely taboo and critically controversial or extremely academic. To those who are involved in their own beliefs, I explore them with critical, open thinking and express them without judgment and social inclusion of all. One thing I'll never do on my show is express to you to exclusively jump on my boat of values, beliefs, and ideologies, but share them with you as a process of diverse learning as a unified, harmonious community. With that said, I encourage each and every one of you listeners out there who are listening tonight to call in and to join our conversation. And please be reminded of this. You do not have to believe anything I say on this show. The most important thing for you to do is to research and learn for yourself with a curious, open mind. And tonight, we will be talking about quantum entanglement and how it relates to Native American beliefs with a very well-known guest. We'll get to him in a minute. But I do encourage you to call in, and our phone number is 929-436-2866 with the meeting ID 522-657-2748. And the number will be up on the screen in about 20 minutes. But give us some time a little bit with the guests first before you call in. So occasionally we find a book that opens the door to an entirely new world. The journey within can be strange and unsettling, yet exhilarating at the same time. We may return with a far greater understanding of home and ourselves. Theoretical physicist David Peat, a native Liverpudlian who lived in Canada for most of his academic career, working all day with new theories of space and time, his mind stirred by the holistic images of quantum reality and a strong felt sense gleaned from his science that the entire universe is alive and vibrant. He became increasingly frustrated by the contrast with the fragmented state of society around and its alienation from nature. 20th century man seemed unable to learn from 20th century science. But our culture is still deeply embedded in the lifeless images of Newtonian billiard ball particles and the kind of thinking that has led to the overly rational, mechanistic Newtonian worldview. Given a book by his wife, featured photographs and speeches of Native American elders, Pete was drawn to a vision that seemed wholly other than, yet uncannily like his own. He set out to explore the world of the medicine way and its indigenous science. As a result, the result is a book about two worlds and two ways of knowing and being, that of the ancient Blackfoot people and that of modern science, and of the traffic that can take place between them. Pete's thesis is that the Native American way of knowing represents a future possibility for the Western mind, and that through a dialogue with it, we might more fully come into possession of the vision of a vision latent within our own science. And if you've never read the book, I suggest you do. It's called Blackfoot Physics by David Peat. And to do this, that book itself is an antidote, and each of the stories in that book is told by an elder. Each insight is into narrative perception or native language, contains material to blow the Western mind, and usefully so. And by reading it, it could make you quantum thinkers of us all. And to do this, we must come to realize that we see the world through the spectacles of the Western worldview. Listening to elders speak of the process and relationship, hearing the hoofs of running buffalo that no longer exists, and experiencing the ways in which other spaces and times interpenetrate and coexist with our own. Struck by the paradox that the analytic linear thinking of the Western mind would make it impossible for us to enter the Native American reality, and yet it is Western scientists themselves working at the very cutting edges of their field who have conceived a world deeply in tune with that of indigenous science. Where the native scientist speaks of a necessary link between spirit and matter, between the individual human beings and the whole of nature, the quantum physicist describes necessary link and co-creative dialogue between the observer and the observed. Native scientist teaches that everything exists results from relationships or balances between energies, powers, and spirits. The modern physicist tells us that essential stuff on the universe exists as relationships and fluctuations at the boundary of what we call matter and energy. Both native and modern scientists speaks of the process of interconnectedness and the wholeness inherent in the universe. Some of Pete's best writing in the past has been about chaos theory. He is drawn to a powerful analogy between the role of that chaos plays in science today and the role of the clown or the joker in Native American rites. Clown openly challenges the order of nature, of society. Chaos challenges the order of nature herself and makes us rethink all of our descriptions of her. Indigenous science also challenges basic assumptions in our way of ordering ourselves, where our legal system is celebrated in an adversarial arena and emphasizes guilt and punishment. Native justice concerns itself with restoring the balance in relationships and with healing any damage. Our concept of knowledge, and thus the education we devise to instill it, is something to be acquired and accumulated, rather like stocks and bonds. The Native American sees knowledge as a process, as coming to knowing, and as necessarily involving personal transformation. And for him, medicine was not an object or a concept, but a movement, a balance, a way of life, walking the good red road. But here, the synchronicity of old connections. And so when I went out to explore questions of culture and community, it was in my search for deeper truths, unknown truths for that. I was introduced to systems of theory, feedback loops, and dynamic living communities and cultures. Indigenous philosophy showed me that there were incredibly deep and a valid interpretation of the world that had been born and nurtured in North America. Now, not every way of thinking about things needed to come from elsewhere, but it can also be aptly called shamanism. But then again, we'll leave that show for next week. In actual fact, next Wednesday, I will have another extremely well-known guest and a very good friend of mine, Dr. Frank May, and we will be talking about shamanism and health. But first, I will read you a poem, and this poem is called My Grandfather Was a Quantum Physicist. And here it goes. I can see him now, smiling, in full dance costume, in front of the roadhouse, on a sunny afternoon. Scientists have finally discovered that the intimate details of our lives are influenced by things beyond the stars and beyond time. My grandfather knew this. And the 8 things that everyone agreed on regarding Native American way of life and beliefs, and in reference to quantum physics, is number 1, everything that exists vibrates. This point of agreement is important because it moves beyond our usual thingy or particle notion of existence based on raw sensory impressions, which is favored in the Indo-European language family, and allows a justification on the part of the Native Americans for the existence of spirits. Number 2, everything is in flux. The only constant is change. Constant change, transformations, everything naturally friendly, trying to reach a more stable state instead of bullying each other around. That kind of process in the English language doesn't allow for you to talk about it too much. But the most Native American languages are based on capturing the emotions of nature, the rhythms, the vibrations, the relationships that you can form with all of these elements, just like a periodic table in a different way. Relationships rather than a game of billiards where you only count the ones that go in, or all their emotion doesn't count. Number 3, the part enfolds the whole. Not just the whole is more than the sum of its parts. When we wear leathers and beads and eagle thongs and things like that. It's not seen as totally ludicrous as decoration. It is seen as containing something you would want to have a relationship with. Number 4, there's an implicit order to the universe. This implicit order holds everything together, whether we want it to or not, and it exists independently of our beliefs, our perceptions, our linguistic categories. It exists totally independently of the methods or rules that people use to arrive at what it is. And David Bohm's, I don't know if you've heard of him, but look him up. David Bohm's captured that with great phrase, the implicit order versus the implicit order of things that they can quite explain quite concretely, such as a rock falling out of a window. This also agrees with the Lakota phase scan, which points to the motion behind the motion. Sorry if I'm saying things wrong here. Bear with me. Number 5, this ecosphere is basically friendly. Basically, it maintains that the planet, and especially the Americas, as well as the physical universe, are basically gentle and friendly. You don't have to have an electron jumping and bullying others into others unless it knows it's missing a table state, and it knows it can reach a table state and increase its own stability. Number 6, nature can be taught new tricks. We also agreed that the world out there that exists, that reality, not imaginality, can be taught new tricks. And what it was raised in this is that there are new tricks beneficial, or they will create hostile universes on their own. Independent of scientists, once they teach electrons how to jump and how to amass the energy to jump, it becomes a bullying, hostile biological world. And it kind of reminds me of Alan Watts talking about how the universe has had to learn how to get ever smaller and ever larger as we probe it with microscopes and telescopes, receding even further into the distance as observation itself. Number 7, quantum potential and spirit. So it struck me that the way physicists use the term potential or quantum potential, it is nearly identical to the way Native Americans use the term spirit. They all agree there was something similar going on. Number 8, the principle of complementary. Physicists for all this century have realized that our usual notion of bipolar or black and white opposites was insufficient when working with nature. The first clue came when they asked incoming light, are you particle? And it answered, yes. Are you wave? And it answered, yes. This equivalent is asked. This is equivalent to asking whether something is a noun or a verb and getting a yes answer to both, which is exactly how Native American language nouns are made up, as verbs with suffixes that make them temporarily into nouns for discussion's sake. This yes complementary is foreign to Indo-European languages, but quite common in other language families, such as the Chinese notion of yin and yang. And it represents a higher level of formal operations referred to by some as post-formal operations, which lies beyond normal Western Indo-European development. So with that said, let's hit a break. You are listening to Soma Fusion Radio with your host, Katie Kamara, on the Global Enlightenment Radio Network. For more info, please look me up on social media or go to my website, soma-fusion.com or somafusionmedia.com. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this show out, and let the world know what we are learning each week. Invite them to listen with us. When we come back, we will have our guest and my beautiful friend, the renowned Michael Lee Hill. Yeah, I said renowned. We where we will be talking all things quantum and lots of other intriguing things as well, just to get his perspective on the subject. With that said, we'll be right back.
What's the basketball court all wet? Because the players kept dribbling on it.
The dad joke. Corny, groan-worthy, but also one of the simplest ways to share a moment with your kids.
What did the buffalo say when he dropped his son off for school? Bye, son.
So take a moment to make your kid laugh, because dad jokes rule. Make your kid laugh today. Go to fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
I dare you. I dare you to change the world. Yeah, you. Getting that college education.
I dare you to be somebody important.
Like be a teacher. Or a reality TV star.
I dare you to stand up here.
To call the shots.
To be a role model.
An inspiration.
An innovator.
To be a teacher.
Be my teacher.
Think you can change my life?
Make me excited about science like you.
Have a career that really means something?
Then do it.
I dare you.
I dare you.
I dare you.
I'm waiting.
Alexa, call Ashley.
Yeah, it's about time you called that girl.
No, he just talked to that girl 2 hours ago. You gotta let love marinate. Put love in that bag to marinate.
Love gonna be in that bag like, I can't wait to talk to him tomorrow.
What? And then after it marinates,
No.
you're gonna pull it out.
JB, who's Alexa? Say it, JB.
You Alexa.
That's right, I'm Alexa.
Thanks, guys, but I'll take it from here.
180 over 111, and I had a stroke.
145 over 92, and then I had a heart attack.
150 over 90, and I had a stroke.
This is what high blood pressure sounds like. You might not feel its symptoms, but the results from a heart attack or stroke are far from silent. Get back on your treatment plan or talk with your doctor to create a plan that works for you. Go to loweryourhbp.org.
Everything's changed.
Brought to you by the American Heart Association, American Medical Association, and the Ad Council.
from our break. You are listening to Soma Fusion Radio with your host, Katie Kamara, and we have a guest on this evening. And tonight we have our guest, which is Michael Lee Hill. He is an award-winning musician, filmographer, and UFO experiencer. His footage of the Lake Erie's UFOs has created a billionaire-like buzz, and Michael seems to have developed an intuitive relationships with his craft. In his home state of Ohio, Michael has been cataloging video after video of UFOs over Lake Erie. He has been featured on the History Channel, countless radio and television programs, and special speaker and at the Star Knowledge Conference. The phenomena consists mostly almost entirely of pulsating orbs of light, unusual light seen as changing colors, converging and separating over the lake. Stories of the unexplained phenomena date back 150 years to the indigenous North American Indian tribes. And with that said, I will bring on Michael himself. Hi, Michael. How are you?
Doing fantastic. How are you doing, Katie?
I am doing absolutely wonderful. So, Michael, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself? I know that was a little bit of a brief introduction there, but tell us about you and what you actually do.
Well, first and foremost, I am a musician, but then ends up being more involved with all of this. By the way, I just got to say, my brain is kind of reeling. I'm way jumping ahead, but I was brought in by the NSA, the remote viewers, sure. And the same people are involved in reverse engineering. Mm-hmm. And the head of that program, he was known publicly as A.R. Borden. And A.R. Borden, he had a colleague that I'm in contact with, and guess who it is?
Who's that?
Frank May.
Really?
Yeah, I was like,
oh my God.
Small world. Yeah, we still talk to this day, and some interesting things there.
Well, Frank's actually a good friend of mine.
Really?
Yeah.
Does the name A.R. Borden ring a bell to you at all?
Pardon?
Does the name A.R. Borden ring a bell to you at all?
No, it doesn't actually.
He's one of the only people, Frank May. Two other people that I know of has actually had face-to-face time with him. I'm talking about A.R. Borden. He became like a father figure to me, but it was all through Skype, and there was no Zoom then, I don't think. But he offered me a course in cosmic harmonious frequencies that ended up entailing crop circles. Mm-hmm. Because, we're talking about these people are the ones that are in technology transfer programs with, happens to be the Anunnaki, who I'm in contact with. So it all comes full circle because, AR brought me into the fold and said, in this course of study, you're going to learn all about cosmic harmonious frequencies, and you're going to learn to do something that the effects are not debatable. And we can get into that because it does deal with quantum entanglement. And it's really a miracle, It's gave me the knowledge to resurrect dead water that's, been, I didn't know water is alive, and it has memory. So it's truly a miracle, and A.R. Borden was a big part of that. But let's go backwards a little bit and rewind.
No, you've also stumped me at Frank May. I'm like, wow. See, here's me thinking I do my shows each week, and something somehow is interrelated with something, and here I am continuing on all my shows, and every single show that I'm doing is like interrelated.
I'd love to talk to you about. Me and Frank have talked recently, and the secret factions of the NSA have technology that is just not released to the public. One of them is called intelligence acceleration software. And, you know, your brain only takes in about 27, 28 frames of information a second. You can prove this to yourself by getting a strobe light. And as it's flashing, sooner or later, it's just going to turn to a solid white light. Well, guess what? It's still flashing. It's just your brain can't process more than about 27, 28 frames per second of information. So all of your five senses, you know, it's collecting what you smell and what you see and what you hear and what you touch. You know, all of it is being collected in that 27 frames per second. But guess what? Millions of bits of information are being recorded and stored in your unconscious. So this technology, what it does is it takes the governor off the conscious mind, the waking ego. And now instead of only having 28 bits of information available, you got millions of bits of information available. So when you come into trial or tribulation or you need answers, reminds me of the Matrix movie where like, I need to fly a helicopter, you know. But the funny part of all this, I guess it's not too funny, but you could talk to Frank about this. He went to bat. The team, an accelerated version of this software, intelligence acceleration software, was used on a 7-member team, and I was part of the 7-member team. And Frank threw up a flag. He said he didn't think it was a good idea because, as it turns out, just all of a sudden, you know, the problem is that the unconscious is where your shadow lies. All the stuff that you don't want to really focus on, you know, maybe it's you were wounded as a child or whatever, you know, mentally wounded is even worse than physically. But those things are shoved down into your unconsciousness. So all of a sudden, when the governor's released, then all of that stuff surfaces. And if you're not really ready and you've not done your spiritual homework, it's a lot and has driven some people crazy. And so I will leave it at that. Tell Frank I said hello. As a matter of fact, I'll contact him after this and say, hey, Frank. But so let's, before all of this, I lived near Lake Erie, and I began seeing these orbs of light out over the lake. And not only over the lake, but I seen them coming out of the lake and exploding into a ball of light. And it sparked my curiosity to go down to the lake and start filming this. And, you know, I started to accumulate quite a library of UFO footage, and it went viral on YouTube. And you can check out my YouTube channel. It's Michael Lee Hill. And you can see it's over 5 million views right now of my UFO footage and whatnot. So what had happened is that drew the History Channel to my door. And by the way, is this going to have video with it? Because I have some stuff to show.
Yes.
But
yes.
Oh, all right, cool.
Yep. You're up on screen right now.
Oh, hey.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, everybody. I'm just watching Lost again. You ever watch that show?
No. me. That's a funny question to me. When somebody comes to me and said, "Have you watched this? Have you watched that? Have you seen a movie?" Or I'm like, "No, I don't watch TV." For all those listeners out there, what I do in my spare time is I sit there and I read books, I research, and I write. And I pretty much write until my fingers bleed. So that is pretty much what I do. I don't like the idiot box at all.
You know what? With the coronavirus and stuff, because up until now, all I've had was, you know, Gaia, and that comes through Amazon Prime and Netflix. So I can kind of make my own programming and look into things I want to look into. Well, because of this coronavirus stuff, you know, I thought, well, maybe I should tune in. Wow, It's scary. When you tune into mass media and have to watch the news, man, it's scary. But anyhow, the History Channel comes to my door and tells me they're making a show on Skywatchers.
Yeah.
And they wanted to include my footage and me for about 5 minutes in this episode, which ended up being called Alien Contact. and it's in season 1. And the reason this happened was before they came to interview me in Cleveland, because that's where I lived at the time, they went to Washington and interviewed another contactee, and his name was Terrell Copeland. And Terrell had the same footage as I. They thought that was weird. But he had also the same story of contact and the same message given to him that be aware of what you're thinking about. Think about what you're thinking about, because thoughts become things, and to start to be able to weed the fear out of your own belief system, because that's the only way reality, and it does change. We can get into that. But they thought, isn't it weird that these two guys that have never met, they're separated by 500 miles, isn't it weird that they've had the same message given to them, the same story of contact, the same being contacted by government officials, because obviously he was a Marine in the first place. So they thought, they just asked me, are you willing to come to Boston to have some medical, well, they didn't even tell me medical work. They just said they wanted to expand on my story, and would I be willing? I said, sure, because I'm a baby. And if I would have known that they were taking me to Boston to have my blood work done and poke me with needles, I probably would have said no. But they got me to Boston and didn't know, but they also brought Terrell Copeland. And they had our blood work done by a Harvard professor, and his name was David Systrom. And so in the show, it's revealed, again, the show's called Alien Contact. And it turned out, instead of being just about Skywatchers, the whole episode ended up being about me and Terrell only. And interestingly enough, Bill Burns said in that episode, first of all, I think that you're being, what's the word? Guided into meeting your extraterrestrial higher self, that you're hybrids, because he knew our blood, after this point, our blood wasn't, because that was what was revealed by the Harvard professor, is we didn't have normal human blood. We can get into what that is exactly, because I know a lot more about it now. But yeah, they took our blood, and it was revealed, yeah, you don't have normal human blood. I was like, whoa, wait a minute, this isn't just a TV show anymore. What the hell are you talking about? Is there something I need to be worried about? And the guy was kind of a dick about it. Excuse my language. He's like, well, what do you think unknown means? Like, well, he said, if I had to make a guess, our brains are releasing a massive amount of what's called creatine kinase, or CK for short. And CK is usually only released into the bloodstream when you've had a heart attack, or you've ripped a muscle, or you've done because what I found out is the creatine kinase releases oxygen into the bloodstream to facilitate healing. So the more oxygen that's in the bloodstream, the more electrical capacitance you hold at a cellular level. You could think of that as chi, or prana, or life force. And the normal amounts of this enzyme, CK, is around 25 parts per liter of blood, unless you've been injured. And tops, if you've been injured, it'll go up to about 250 to 300 tops to bring oxygen. What they found in mine and Terrell's blood is we were right around 2,100. So truly what was happening is our blood is being super oxygenated, which brings a lot of chi and prana into the bloodstream. As I said, I've met the Anunnaki now, and they've told me what that anomaly truly does, and that it's an indicator of their Anunnaki human hybrid bloodline on this planet, they told me, which is called the Nephilim in the Bible. And it's really interesting because it comes all full circle, because what I'm in the middle of actually revealing to the world is that bloodline is truly an Atlantean bloodline, and it's truly one of the lost tribes of Israel that came from the hills of Galilee in the past. Now it's mainly intertwined into the Native American Indians. So it all comes full circle. But so at the end of this show for the History Channel, That was in 2008, in March when it aired. And in the summer of 2008, I went to it was a pagan festival, and I'm not pagan. Nothing against, it's all good to me, but I'm not. I'm really more scientific than anything. But I found myself there, and it was called Sirius Rising, and the Anunnaki are from Sirius. So I didn't know I was being taken into the Anunnaki hive. And that's where they said, we want to talk to you about this blood anomaly that was revealed on the History Channel. This is like me talking to you. This ain't channeling. This nothing against channeling either, but this is me face to face with these beings right in front of me. They said, in your past, we were known as the Anunnaki. They said, in your past, you were known as Ea Enki, the water bearer. And that was weird to me because there was no Ancient Aliens on TV. Didn't know what an Anunnaki even was. And so I surely didn't know what a water bearer is, But now it's all comes full circle because the information they gave me, as I said, is taught and been confirmed by a NASA biophysicist to resurrect dead water and return it back to its divine energetic signature. And I have all the proof from NASA, all the GDV photography, which is photography that can actually photograph how much photonic energy is in a droplet of water. And, right off the bat, they imaged just regular tap water from California. And it was almost dead. It was just this little tiny pinprick of light. Matter of fact, I happen to have a disc here. So what had happened was that just had a little tiny pinprick of light in it. It looked like small star in the sky under the GDV camera. Then they took one of my images, which we're going to have to back up and say how I got to this. Ooh. But this is what the Anunnaki guided me into, and this is what is resurrecting dead water. See that in the middle there, that toroidal physics?
Yep.
The donut? It's truly, what had happened was, it's dead water. Got the photographs to prove it. Then they took this and they put a glass of water on it, just for 15 minutes. And then it looked like this. It looks like a little supernova of energy. And so now I'm like, I can look someone in the eye and go, yeah, I am the water bearer. Would you like to see the photos? But it took a long time for that info. And the what Ea is the most ancient word in the Native American Indian culture for grandfather. It's not grandfather in the typical sense. It's Ea was said to be a scientist who did some of the genetic work to tweak the human genome. There's a lot here because what led to this is 5 crop circles that led me to this understanding of, you're talking about particle and wave, right?
Yep.
Well, E equals MC squared. It's just the particle part of the equation. E is energy, M is mass, and C is the speed of light. M mass particle. It's only the particle part of the equation. So the question is, well, where's with the wave component? Where's the frequency component? What you find out is 432 squared becomes C, the speed of light, within 1% accuracy. And then
I know E equals MC squared, but what about E equals HV?
I don't know. We'll have to
explain. E equals HV is basically the equation says that the energy of a particle of light called a photon is proportional to its energy by a constant factor.
That's very interesting.
Meaning that photons with low frequencies like radio waves have lower energies than photons with high frequencies like X-ray.
It's very interesting because what they've told me is, if you take 432 squared becomes C squared times M, which in this case of how we're using it is photons. equals energy.
So
you know,
the correct formula you're probably looking for is maybe E equals HV.
very interesting. I don't know. That sounds very perfect to me. But in this, you know, the fact that there was no energy and now there's energy, I asked the NASA biophysicist, I said, well, isn't that unlimited free energy, you know, of some sort? And I said, where is that extra energy coming from? If there was no energy, but now there's energy, where is this energy coming from? And I said, is it from our sun? Is it from our planets? Is it from our planet's electromagnetic fields? And she said, no, it's coming from another dimension, which again gets to the toroidal physics. It's really, this is a cymatic image, because once I was guided into this most cosmic harmonious frequency, which is the only frequencies that are truly a component of light, I started learning about this, the toroidal donut. So what had happened was I hired these scientists at it's called cymatics, which is a new science of making the invisible visible. You know, for the first time, we can actually see what frequencies create what geometry.
Whoops.
Oh. It's okay.
So we're talking about sacred geometry then. It's just another way of saying sacred geometry?
Yes. You know, if you find out everything is created from sacred geometry, from an atom to a galaxy, and, you know you can get to geometry through high math. But what's being understood now is you can also get to geometry through nothing but frequency. This is being held in shape by an A note on my guitar that was tuned properly. And then I sent them a 20-second sound file. It wasn't, you know what, I can actually show you now.
Sure.
This is all I sent them. Well, I hit 2 strings. It was just my A note. This is tuned properly. Nothing fancy. So I sent them 20 seconds of that, and then they put it through what is the most advanced cymatic device. It's called a cymoscope. And they imaged that note tuned properly. I was meticulous about making sure I was tuned properly, because what you find out using the same technology, instead of it looking like this, it'll look just like a puddle of mud. You know, if you're tuned to today's standard of 440 hertz. So the scientists for Cymoscope said, listen, we've used this technology to image everything from, they're kind of getting famous now because they've used this technology to make a language to communicate with dolphins. They can see, you know, what shape a word is and then play back the frequency and create it and communicate. They said we've created, they've imaged every frequency known to mankind, and like even baby noises, you know, to see what it looks like. But they've said we've never seen anything that, they said, you know, that in the middle, that donut that has the golden mean, it has a Fibonacci spiral going around. It's the first time a toroidal portal has ever been photographed, really. And then all around it is the 5 platonic solids. So if you know that frequency creates geometry, to me, it's like if you got a cymatic device like a cymoscope, it's almost like your radio in your car, you know, just start at low frequencies. Sooner or later, you tune into a station and it gets clearer and clearer and clearer until you have the best reception. Then as you go higher in your frequency range, it starts to dissipate and more noise comes in until it's just totally noise. But then sooner or later, you tune into another frequency where geometry or it's receptive comes in. So really, it comes down to, well, it's not opinion anymore then. Just go through the frequency range, see where geometry is formed, and then write that number down. It happens to be 432 hertz, not 440. Like I said, 440, put that through the cymatic device, and it looks like a puddle. There's no geometry. There's no structure. There's no complexity. But then you just back it off 8 cents. To the human ear, it's not even very much, but to the universe, it's everything. And, you end up with this. So, I guess that's good for right now.
I was just going to say, if we backtrack a little bit, I noticed you mentioned Anunnaki. For listeners who are very new, who my listeners anyway, who are new to the concept of what Anunnaki is or who it is, can you tell us a little bit more about who and what the Anunnaki is outside of what you and I know?
Well, first of all, you need to know this isn't like woo-woo stuff. This is actually history, and it's pre-Egypt. The Sumerians had the first actual culture on this planet. They came out of the gate with full writing and laws and governance and timekeeping. We'll get into all that. But they're also truly the ones that made the pyramids. So the Anunnaki in the Sumerian clay tablets that have been decoded, Zechariah Sitchin's transcriptions are the most famous. And, he said, listen, I'm just a professor that knows how to transcribe this stuff. You do with it whatever you will. But in the Sumerian clay tablets, it says that this race there's another planet in our solar system, and they called it Nibiru. They call it the Saami, and the people of the Saami are called the Saamai. And the Saamai, the people of Saami, are known as the Sam when you start working with people in the NSA or whatnot. But our word for them is Anunnaki. In the Sumerian clay tablets, the Sumerians said, yeah, these people, the Anunnaki, which means those from the heavens who came to the earth. In the Bible, they were known as the Elohim. They said they're the ones that gave us this culture and taught us. And so that's who the Anunnaki are, is our ancient ancestors who came here. And it's interesting, though, people might know them by, the Ancient Aliens show. These are the ancient aliens, and it's known that in Sumer, pre-Egypt, all of a sudden we just came out of the gate with full functioning culture, down to our way that we keep time. Well, we'll get into this, but they gave us this idea of multiplying or dividing whole units by 12, whether it's 12 inches in a foot, 12 hours in a day, 12 astrology signs.
Yeah.
It just goes on and on. But 60, if you get down to a smaller unit of time, you divide it by 60. And so look at how many seconds are in 12 hours. It's 43,200 or 432. This gets really interesting because when I tell you that they've encoded this 432 message to align us with cosmic harmonious energy, Tesla, 369.
Yep.
If you start a Fibonacci sequence with 3 instead of 0, 3, 6, 9, 9 and 6 is 15. Just keep going with that. It's the only Fibonacci sequence that lands on 432. And, I met Graham Hancock and we were talking, and I learned if you take the height of the pyramid and multiply it by 43,200, the same amount of seconds in 12 hours, and take the base perimeter of the pyramid and multiply it by 43,200, you get the proper dimensions of planet Earth. It's crazy. But now a lot of people might know that the pyramid actually has 8 sides, not 4. And it only reveals itself on 2 days of the year. I believe it's the summer and fall equinoxes. It's either the equinox or solstice, right? And only on those 2 days of the year is it noticeable. It's kind of like, Chichen Itza, right? I think that's the Mexican pyramid where only, on the equinox, you can see it looks like a snake,
Yep.
the shadow. Well, it's kind of like the same thing, but think of this now, only Graham Hancock has the four sides that we know of as 51.86 as the angle of the pyramid. But the Anunnaki have revealed to me, this all comes back together. Don't worry.
I know. Don't worry. You're talking just like me in my usual days. I go round and round and round in circles, and then I'll finally make my point. It's all good.
Right on. 27 hertz instead of 432. It's really easy. Like, just because you have a middle note on your piano tuned properly to 432 hertz, well, you still have a lower A note. And as Pythagoras, he said, to find the accurate hertz of that frequency, all you do is divide by 2. So 432 divided by 2 is 216. 216 divided by 2 is 108. Then 54, and then 27. You'll never have a 27 hertz frequency if you're not tuned properly 4 octaves higher to 432. So what you find is when you take a 27 hertz pulse and put it through that cimoscope, it creates a perfect 7-pointed star. And as you can see here, this is, see the 7-pointed star? This is where this information started coming from. And we can get into the crop circles because this was really the first one. But so 7-pointed star they communicated to me the importance of it because it truly is a indicator in pointing towards 432 being the most cosmic harmonious frequency and the only frequencies that are truly harmonics of light. So you start to find out, like the Cherokee, their symbol for their the Cherokee tribe is a 7-pointed star. And back in Babylon, which is the Sumerians, again, further in time, their world map is on a 7-pointed star. So one night, the Anunnaki were just whispering in my ear, man, and wouldn't let me sleep. So I had to tell my fiance, I got to get up and do some math. All right, you freak. So they're telling me you need to divide a circle by 7. So I got up and I typed 360, divided by 7. What you get is 51.428. And so 51.428 is exactly 1/7 away around the circle. So 51.428 is forever tied to a 7-pointed star. A 7-pointed star is forever tied to the most cosmic harmonious frequency, being 432, proven now, that resurrects and revitalizes dead water, by the way. So the 7-pointed star, when I got up and they said, Michael, you need to divide a circle by 7, the answer is 51.428. So I thought, well, is there anything special about that number? Because I didn't know. First of all, I found Graham Hancock talking about the pyramid and the angle that they knew of being 51.86. Well, his voice in my head is like, Michael, subtract the 51.428 from that 51.86. What you get is 432. Think about the engineering that would have to be possible for that frequency, the hidden frequency, which, by the way, they told me is truly the Ark of the Covenant. This energy, new source of energy, will align mankind with, Tesla said once we understood the magnificence of the 3, the 6, and the 9, that we would unlock keys to the universe. And how some of this came to be, too, is I met a gentleman who happens to be the Arcturian ambassador on this planet. And he said, Michael, you know how they gave us this method of dividing a whole unit by 12? Let's see what happens when you divide 440, today's musical standard. So we did, 440 divided by 12 is 36.66666666666. It just keeps going. He goes, oh my God, look at that. It's pretending to be sacred geometry while still being an imposter. He said, let's take 432 and divide it by 12. What you get is a perfect 36. So this is really important because all 432 base numbers resolve to 9. 4 plus 3 plus 2 equals 9. It's lower octave, 216. 2 plus 1 plus 6 equals 9. 54, 9. 27, 9. So 3 and 6, 9. 369 is a different way of saying 432 when you use their method of looking into things. I think it's very fascinating because even what I found out is this whole cosmic harmonious frequency subject, they've encoded into the pyramids. It's been encoded into the Sumerian kings list. If you add all the kings up, it's 432,000 years long. The Kali Yuga is 432 based. All the world's religions are 432 based.
I was just going to mention too. What about you mentioned the 7-pointed star? That's also in relation to ascension mastery for the Merkaba,
yes.
Chariot of Ascension.
Yeah, I found out from the Native Americans. We can get into this. The 7 chakras, right? 7-pointed star. Chakras. 7 directions. We know pretty much 4, and then people know, well, up and down add 6. The 7th direction is inward, according to the elders, and that's the way out is in. Yeah. So yes, and what I don't want to lose this train of thought because it's
that's cool.
Important.
Go ahead.
And I was invited to what is the most sacred ceremony by the Native American Indians, and it's called the Sun Dance. And I didn't know this, but truly you're being vetted to see if you're a clean vessel. And thank God it wasn't me alone. I had some really good friends with me that helped me through and make the right decisions. But after all was said and done, the grandmother sat down next to me and she said, "You are the rainbow we've been waiting for." That she said every chakra has its own color, but it only emits light when it's spinning freely and not encumbered. But she said every chakra takes on the shape of the Merkaba, and it's spinning, and red in the root through the colors of the rainbow to purple in the crown. And she said only when the 7 are illuminated, and she said to those of us that have the gift of sight, you've become the whirling rainbow. And that according to them, spirit never grants extra manifestation ability for your thoughts to become things unless you've cleansed all of your 7 chakras. Or I picture it as a 7-pointed star where each point of the star is a color of the chakra, because let's just say you had 6 of your chakras all clean and they're brilliant, but one's dark. Say your root chakra is dark and you're having all this problem with survival, keeping a roof over your head and stuff. All of a sudden, if spirit grants you extra manifestation ability, you're probably going to go to the one that's still dark and just manifest the crap out of what you don't want. Mm-hmm. So spirit is smarter than that. And it's like everyone can become rainbow. It's all inclusive. Doesn't matter whether you're female, male, what race, it doesn't even matter. So I love the idea of going into the future, because what I'm being told is humanity is going to be given the tools with biofeedback mechanisms from like heart math, we've never been taught, well, if you're having this kind of problems in your life or you're facing this type of trial or tribulation, well, that's a throat chakra issue. Oh, that's a root chakra issue. So you'll be given the tools to see where you need to work on your own chakra system and be given the biofeedback mechanisms to see how you're doing. Actually, it's brilliant. But so the rainbow, and I find out too, the Tibetan monks have the exact same knowledge. They call it the rainbow body. So that's what I'm here to do, is actually bring this knowledge of becoming the rainbow,
Mm-hmm. Very, very cool. With the seven-pointed star, does it have? Well, what does the seven-pointed star have in common or in relation to the Stargate?
You know what it is? It is the Stargate. The rainbow is the Stargate to another way of existence. It's the human caterpillar becoming the human butterfly. And, it's all about the seven-pointed star because, the seed of life that we know about with sacred geometry, this is interesting because take them saying you got to divide a circle by 7. You get 51.428. By the way, not only is it the hidden angle within the pyramid, it's the actual latitude line on this planet of 51.428. It's called St. Michael's ley line that goes through the UK, and it goes through Stonehenge, and it goes through Avebury. And it's where all these crop circles of seven-pointed stars are showing up, pretty mind-blowing because that's one thing that it's not been brought to the table yet. And I'm very excited to bring that knowledge that St. Michael and Mary's ley line, by the way, is at the latitude line of 51.428, which is, like we said, totally intertwined into a seven-pointed star. And the 432 frequency, it's just different ways of saying the same thing. But they did tell me, too, with St. Michael and Mary's ley line that goes through the UK. You can just Google that, by the way. You'll see what I'm talking about. They told me there is a story, the Anunnaki did, waiting for mankind, that doesn't really matter what end of the line you start, on that St. Michael Mary ley line, but just start visiting all those sacred sites, visit the churches and the temples, and pay attention to the artwork that's there, and a story will unfold, and it's for mankind, and it's from St. Michael because, man, this gets weird, but this is really strange for me because I'm not religious in any normal way. I was pretty much agnostic until my I guess ascension or whatever you want to call it.
I have gone through many religions and whatnot, and now I just classify myself as an omnist.
A what?
An omnist.
Omniist?
Omnist. Yes.
Someone
who believes in or finds truth in all religions.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what's happening. I like to say it's like all religions are looking at the same candle through a multicolored wheel. It's a different color, but it's the same candle. You know what, though? It's weird because I'm a firm believer in Creator. I've experienced it. I like to say, synchronicity and coincidence, they will grow in your life. And the more you pay attention, the more they grow until all doubt is removed that something is in contact with you and communicating with you. Then what? I don't claim to know what that intelligence is. To me, it's kind of like a fly in a 747, Probably if it tries to figure out what it's in, it's going to not come up with the right answer. So I don't claim to know. I think I'm just getting out of kindergarten. But I know there is something higher. But also, I know that we're in a co-creatorship with that intelligence.
Yes.
That's very important because once you change one thought and you see your reality change, that's a truth that comes from within. No religion's needed. But take a circle divided by 7, you get the 51.428 St. Michael's ley line. But if you take that same circle and multiply it by 7, you put 1 in the middle and 6 around, that gives you that 6-petaled seed of life that becomes the flower of life when you break it out into 64 circles. In the middle is a 6-petaled flower that becomes a Merkaba. That's when you just connect the lines, that's the Merkaba. What they showed me was a 7-petaled seed of life that creates a 7-petaled seed of life. And how that works is, the old seed of life, it's 1 in the middle and 6 around. The crop circle that they showed me, it was interesting because, like I said, when they told me to get up and divide a circle by 7, what they showed me in my third eye was going 1/7 away around a circle, and it was like highlighted. And then the rest of the circle fell away, and it just left that arc. But underneath of it, another one mirrored it and came up like this, and it made an eye shape. And when they did that, they said that's the Ark of the Covenant. It was never an ARK, it was an ARC. And if you look at this technology of 432, bringing energy in from it, because that's what she said when I asked the biophysicist from NASA, where's this energy coming from? She said, it's not coming from this realm at all. It's coming from another dimension. That really was weird to me because this is coming from NASA, and I've never had to ask myself, well, what's it mean to be drinking water that has energy from another dimension in it? I tell you, it makes you feel good. Matter of fact, because I now know this is the same. This is the 432 image. I've started putting it on everything because we'll get into the quantum entanglement aspect of this. But the elders, Native American Indian elders, told me anything that contains this image will bring forth the attributes of the true fountain of youth, water. And people, they know it's in Florida, but I can tell you that it's not where people think it is. But anyhow, so the 7-pointed star, it's 7 around, none in the middle. So our old seed of life, that all life as we know it, it breaks out into that form, whether it's cells and how cells divide or anything. It goes into, it's not old, but it is, I look at it as the caterpillar human 3D structure for mankind to experience its own consciousness and grow. But now imagine when you see a new seed of life being presented, it's no longer that old caterpillar 6-petaled, it's a 7-petaled seed of life. I've only seen it as a seed. That's the only thing that showed up in the crop circle. But I'd like to see it broken out into 64 circles and see that whole grid of, I've not seen it personally. But I think it's very interesting because they're showing us actually almost like the cosmic blueprint of the next phase of human evolution. Because, the old Merkaba also encodes a square, Metatron's cube, Well, this new seed of life, let me back up. That old seed of life, 1 in the middle and 6 around, it's called Vesca piscis or Pisces.
Yeah.
Tomato. But it's all just taking 2 circles and you overlap them and you get that eye shape in the middle. But the new 7 around is also all Vesca Pisces. But it creates a 7-petaled seed in the middle. So I feel, but I got to tell you, once they showed me that arc, they had been guiding me into the 7-pointed star for a very long time. Mm-hmm. So I asked them, I said, boy, I really like to see that as a 7-pointed star and have those curves. It showed up in the UK the very next day. I was like, oh, this is getting pretty instantaneous.
As you get deeper into finding out this information, that you actually get even deeper, even more. And it's like going down a never-ending rabbit hole. That's why I like quantum entanglement and quantum physics so much, is because you do end up finding that you can be the ultimate philosopher, and that is to go round and round and round and round in circles looking for the ultimate answer, when at the end of the day, it's kind of just lies within ourselves. The answer is ourselves.
Indeed, inward, the 7th direction. Yeah. I think it's so important to bring this new system online to teach how to become a clean vessel.
Yeah.
That'll lead to the freeing of mankind.
It's part of the reason why I do my job, and it's professionally, it is what it is. But underneath it all, there's always going to be someone that is going to be investigating human behavior and everything else that goes with it, and with human behavior that can extend into belief systems, anthropology, societies, cultures, anything you could possibly think of. Because again, I'm going around and around in circles. Everything is interrelated.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. It's like once you start uncovering some of these things, one thing leads to another, and what you learn in one aspect will relate to others. It's like Da Vinci.
It's not.
Once he started to understand that he just seen it all. It's like, oh yeah, I can make a helicopter.
This is just like, but then but for those people who are awakened to the fact, they kind of sit there and they look at the world and they go, if you only knew what the beauty of life really was.
Yeah.
Because most people, because they're either uninitiated or they're unaware. Well, they're not even aware, let alone don't have the perspective, or it's the untrained eye. They cannot see it for what it is because they are influenced by external environmental factors in order to, and they're pretty much closed mind because of whatever religion or belief system that they're into. They're indoctrinated. Yes. So for anything outside of that, it's too hard to fathom for the human brain.
What's that called? Cognitive
dissonance.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's a very real thing, and man, you know what I've learned? You can gauge where someone's at by how happy they are. Never take advice from miserable people.
No.
Listen to people that are vibrant and joyful.
I know that when I get a moment to have meditate, I meditate. I don't meditate on a 430 that frequency at all. I do not do it. I meditate on a 10,000 hertz frequency. And it's so cool to do that at that, because you can start seeing all sorts of imagery at that point.
Right on.
It is really cool. And at that point, you can, at 10,000 hertz, you can actually not only just meditate, but you can also self-hypnotize yourself.
Absolutely.
And have out-of-body experiences.
I would be interested to see, because we went lower in octaves, but obviously you can just go higher and multiply by 2. And it'd be interesting to see what the effects are. I can tell you, even being the focal point of 432, and you can go higher octaves or lower, but like Tibetan monks, those singing bowls, I have one, I should have brought it in. They're tuned to 432. Mm-hmm. And they don't have a reference. They don't have tuning fork or anything. They're just tuning in. So I would be willing to bet that the frequencies you're tuning into are octaves of 432, because those octaves still, and not only the A note, there's a B note, there's a C note, there's a D, an E, an F, and a G. And when you're tuned properly, the whole grid pops out, I'm going to open up this door. It is so hot here today.
Well, with that said, Michael, we'll take a break so that you can kind of cool down for a little bit. And it's all right. I know. Earlier I went out, and yeah, I was like, where the hell did this weather come from? It's like, hang on, it's 80 degrees. Why am I sweating? That's not normal. Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah, you're in Florida too. It's
yeah, even worse.
Right on top of it.
Uh-huh. Well, with that said, guys, that you are listening to Soma Fusion Radio with your host, Katie Kamara, and our special guest tonight is Michael Lee Hill, and we will be right back. But if you are listening to the live streams right now, please be sure to click subscribe and like, and please share it out, because I think that Michael is a very, very special guest, and I think that his words need to be heard by all. With that said, we will be going for a break.
How long is the break?
7 minutes.
Alrighty.
I'll be right back.
The lies, constantly putting you on one more drug that isn't covered by your health insurance company. I'm sick of it too. And I found a very old recipe for colloidal silver. It is a liquid solution created using electrolysis to suspend pure metallic elemental silver in groups of particles of 18 atoms or fewer, each with a positive electric charge, attached to a simple protein molecule in distilled water. Some say that the colloidal silver goes back 4,000 years. I found the process that was almost been lost to time. Colloidal silver works just like triple antibiotic ointment. It will keep your cuts clean, and it's an antiviral too. This product could save your life when there's no doctor around, and you can put colloidal silver directly on the wound to keep the infection away. Get yours now at bluecollarpolitics.org. Just click on the BCP store tab, and you are on your way to having that doctor in a bottle.
The author of The 7 Principles of Fat Burning, Dr. Eric Berg.
Dr. Eric Berg's popular book, 7 Principles of Fat Burning, explores this concept.
Dr. Berg believes that each body type predisposes someone to certain health problems.
We're back on Health and Fitness Friday again with Dr. Eric Berg.
You'll burn 900 calories, but no actual weight loss. Favorite lemon juice, Italian volcano lemon juice. It's organic lemon juice. Ketones are the byproduct of fat metabolism. I mean, how many kids at parties, at school, they're drinking the apple juice thinking it's better than soda?
In the break, you were talking to us about losing weight in your sleep. I've got to hear about this. How does this work? And is it true?
I got on the diet plan. I started the treatment. I have lost some weight. I've slimmed down. I look much better. I feel much better. I have more energy.
The carbs, the bread, the pasta, the alcohol, you can clean this up so fast and bring it back to normal range. Shifting your goal to getting more healthy and that specific body type to actually improve it, as compared to trying to put everyone on the same exercise and an eating plan, it doesn't work.
The causes of iodine deficiency, there's direct causes and indirect causes.
The key is getting that recovery when you work out. If you're not going to do that, then don't over-exercise or don't even exercise. My mission, my goal, my purpose is to give people the simple truths on health, so they can create a healthier body. You know, we all have the power to heal. We all have the power to get healthy, but we just don't have the know-how. The knowledge is missing. There is no health in health care anymore. We become dependent on prescription medications. In the last 27 years of practice, I've treated over 40,000 patients and trained over 2,700 doctors. My purpose, my mission, my goal is to help people find the simple truths of health so they can create a healthier body.
Hey, baby. Who am I?
This.
Say, Mama.
Daddy.
Alexa, play the Ting Tings.
That's not my name. That's not my name. That's not my name.
40 million songs. One for every moment. Amazon Music Unlimited. Start your 30-day free trial today. Automatically renews monthly or annually. Cancel anytime.
Welcome back. You are listening to Soma Fusion Radio with your host, Katie Kamara, and tonight's special guest is Michael Lee Hill. And tonight we are talking all about quantum entanglement and its relation to Native American. What I would like to do right now is we do have a viewer question, but first I would like to instill some interesting facts. You mentioned about the Stonehenge. We know that the ancient sites reflect in the number 432, and if anyone didn't know, the music that I'm actually playing, even prior to the show, or the first show, song that I played of Beethoven, was actually at the frequency of 432. Now, all of the music that I'm playing is at 432. Awesome. Now, going back to what I was saying just before about Stonehenge, the connection of Stonehenge to the number 25920, the year orbital precession of the equinox, and the number 432 is obvious. And if you take the 30 stones in the outer ring of 360 degrees, you divide that by 30, which gives you 12. And if you divide that by 25,920 by 12, you get 2160, which is the approximate diameter of the moon. When you divide the 60 stones in the second circle of the 360 degrees by 60, you get 6. So 25,920 divided by 6 equals 4,320. By dividing the 20 stones in the center circle of 360 degrees by 20, you get 18. 25,920 divided by 18 is 1,440. And if the second circle of the 60 stones equals 25,920 years, then each stone equals 432 years around the 12 sectors of 25,920 year precession. Furthermore, the center circle stones would be 20 times 432, which equals 8,640 years. The center stone in the center circle would have to be divided by half at the time of the equinox, making 2 stones for a total of 20. 1,440 is 1/6 of 8,640. Again, in the numbers of scientific concert pitch, we see the numbers 144, 216, 432, 864. The Earth wobbles or spiral action gives us time count of 86,400 seconds in a day and 43,200 seconds in 12 hours. 12 times 60 equals 720, and 2 times 360 equals 720. It takes 72 years for the Earth to travel 1 degree around 25,920 years precession of the equinox. Many stone circles have shown that these precise numbers also foretell the changing of the poles and their past positions according to balanced alignment. So many stone circles were laid down to forewarn future generations of the passing of the certain orbital astral bodies that from time to time may cause cataclysmic events. There you go, for those who didn't know that. So there are ancient technologies out there that really have a lot to do with quantum physics and quantum entanglement, and those ancient sites, like you mentioned, Michael, about the pyramids.
Mm-hmm. I did not know about Stonehenge. That's really, really fascinating. The precessional cycle in itself. Do you know who Richard Hoagland is?
Yes, I do.
When I needed answers, Spirit led me to him. So when he asked me to be on his radio show, I was kind of blown away. But during our interview, he said, Michael, we know that your story sounds probably crazy to other people, but NASA has been looking into how energy works multidimensionally for a very long time. And your 432 base numbers are right on the money. this is the first time I heard this, which you just said. He said, because what people don't know is all these ancient cultures have encoded precessional cycle numbers into their temples and constructs. But, even like Graham Hancock, he's like, well, we don't really know why they were so fascinated with the precessional cycle. It doesn't make sense unless you're a musician. You start to understand these are 432 base numbers. These, the precessional cycle, if you take the 26,920 year cycle and divide it by 60, it's 432. When you take, first of all, this really toasted my noodle, because when I learned that the precessional cycle is also 432 base numbers, they are encoded. I thought, well, what came first, the chicken or the egg? First of all, how did they know of almost, let's just say, remember 27 is 4 octaves below. So rounded up, it is a 27,000 year cycle. How did they know of a 27,000 year cycle for the first part? Secondly, none of it makes sense unless you go, oh, they're notes. They're giving us frequency information through the precessional cycle. Because as you said, the sun is 8,640, is it? 432 for, man, my brain's not working really well. But, and the moon is 2,160 miles across. Mm-hmm. That's why, those are octaves of 432. And that's why on a total eclipse, it fits perfectly. The moon will totally eclipse the sun because they're octaves of the same frequency. But what you find out is, the Atlanteans first intertwined into the Mayan culture, taught them the Mayan calendar, pyramid building. But once the darkness set in, and they started thinking they needed to sacrifice people and whatnot, the elders went, let's keep on going. I think these people are not getting it. They became what's known as the mound builders of North America and intertwined into the Cherokee and the Sioux and the Iroquois. I'm Iroquois. I am Seneca. On my mother's side, I am Erie Montauk on my father's side. But back in time, I just found out that I have a Blackfoot also in there. But when you look into these mountains like Newark earthworks, one wall will be 2,160 feet long. Another wall will be 1,080 feet long. Well, that's 108, and that's 216. Those are octaves of 432, built into the actual mound sites as well. It's like they've been drip feeding us information to allow us to align with galactic cosmic energy for a very long time. But obviously, they're patient. They're letting us figure it out in our own time. But I think we're doing a good job at it. But it's very strange that you brought up the 144 or 14,400 or how many zeros, it much doesn't matter. But if we could, I'd like to show you some of the crop circles that they communicated to me with. And one of them is surrounded, it's a 7-pointed star.
Absolutely.
It's surrounded by, these are Baktuns, which is a Mayan long calendar count. And each one of those Baktuns is 144,000 days long. So there you have it again, right? But, when I seen this, I was like, we're talking about 432 base time will always resolve to 9. 4 plus 3 plus 2 is 9. All of the octaves, even all the other notes, all resolve to 9, which is interesting, by the way, because I've talked to many biophysicists now because they're really freaked out over these findings, because if this resurrects water, there's no wires going to it. There's no battery, so they're kind of freaked out themselves with this. and it's all 432, you know. But with this crop circle, I'm watching the movie 2012. I'm going, well, that's a 5. It can't be the end of the calendar. This isn't how they keep time. So I just went forward, and it was 2016. So the precessional cycle, they're telling us it's 2016, because even if you take all these long Mayan calendar count Baktun symbols, there's 14 of them. The 13th Baktun into the 14th is the end of the Mayan calendar. That's why people thought it was doomsday. It's like, oh, it's the end of the world. No, there is no 14th Baktun, because it's actually the first Baktun of the age of Aquarius. So it's not the end, it's a new beginning. So I thought, well, if these each are 144,000 days long, what happens if you take that 144,000 and multiply it by the 14? Well, it's 2,160 2016. So we are now officially in the age of Aquarius. So congratulations.
Well, there you go. Just so I don't forget it. D asked in Facebook chat, are our lines sacred geometry connected to universal ley lines?
Yes. Yeah, and you know what I found out from the elders for Native Americans? First of all, where those ley lines cross, right? There's a mound site, ancient mound sites, because where those ley lines cross, there is vortexes of energy. And those vortexes of energy, all surrounding the earth, ebb and flow. They are the strongest at equinoxes and solstices. Interesting. So that's why the Native American Indians would, I got hair in my mouth. They would go to these mound sites on equinoxes and solstices, and that's why they tracked equinoxes and solstices so carefully, to know, to be where these ley lines crossed at an equinox, to put their mental energy into the energy system of this planet. And so if you think of it, all the ley lines, this energy that's breathing, where it's the most energetic is on the solstice and on the equinox. So you'll find out that these mound sites, there's never any proof that our ancient ancestors used them for like living. There's no food, cooking, there's no utensils. Matter of fact, they wouldn't even enter those areas unless they did a lot of ceremony and clean their own psychic vessel, because they knew whatever you bring in to those areas is going to be multiplied, because it's a vortex. So they would make very sure they would dance and they would smudge, light sage, and, get their stuff straight, before they would even enter one of those areas. So yes, the ley lines are absolutely. But what I want to get to is, even say that you and I and 5 other people are going to go to a mound site or where ley lines cross, and we're going to try to put our energy into the ley lines, for a better outcome for humanity, let's say. Well, let me show you this. Well, I'm going to back up real quick.
Sure.
This is another disc I make. It's the old Seed of Life. You can see kind of the 6 petal in the middle. That's the Merkaba. And that's created by 1 circle in the 7, 1 circle in the middle, and then 6 around it. Well, what they showed me was this, and this is from a crop circle. I had a team that painstakingly took 4K, created 4K resolution images from those crop circles for me to use. And they asked me, well, which ones do you want to use? And this is the last one. But you can see, it's hard to see in here, isn't it?
Oh, you can see it. It's just reflecting on the front. That's fine. I can see it.
It's 7-petaled. And it's all feminine with the cube, with the Merkaba. It's all straight. It's straight lines, which is male energy. For the first time It's a 7-pointed star made from total Vesca Pisces or Piscis, and it's creating a 7-petal. So this from 1 point to here, as we said, is 51.428. So if Richard Hoagland had proved that when you go to the Merkaba, right, where energy is most primal, that if you put a Merkaba within a circle, where the pyramids of the pyramid, the corners of the pyramid meet the circle, is always 19.5. And every planet, whether it's, Saturn or Jupiter, Earth, the greatest energy upwelling is a volcano. The Great Storm is at 19.5. Now, what is that, Jupiter or Saturn? Whatever one has that great storm that rotates around, it's at 19.5. So, but here they're showing the 7-pointed star, and it's showing up along the Earth's latitude line of 51.428, which is a 7-pointed star. So it's almost like instead of working with massive energy to create planets, what if you're dealing with mental energy and putting things into the etheric astral realm? It's the 7-pointed star. And this is the one, by the way, that showed up the next day after I asked them what would a 7-pointed star look like. And it's very fascinating to me because it's kind of hard to see, but if you take this line right here, that's one circle. There's another circle. Like if you just fill it in, you get this new seed of life. It's never been seen before by mankind. Everything that we know of, even Da Vinci, when he drew, this is what he drew, because this was the blueprint or the architecture for conscious evolution. Like I said, I think this is like caterpillar, human phase. This is butterfly. Or it's just good weed. That's a joke.
I was just going to mention too, in terms of, we got another question in the chat here from D again. But I just wanted to mention really, really quickly too that in October 1953, the International Standards Organization had 40,000 petitions from musicians to have the international concert pitch at A equals 432 hertz changed to 440 hertz. I don't know if you knew that. And so by raising the concert pitch above the scientific C prime, which equals 128 hertz, disassociates the connection of consciousness to the body and creates antisocial conditions in humanity. And it's extremely noted in if we examine the 20th century collective consciousness and the use of A equals 440 hertz as possible pitch control in mass media pushed through radio and television. Some might know it as the British invasion of rock and roll. We see the potential of antisocial behaviors and possible dangers of using higher and higher pitches as central references for music. So
I've heard this, but from everything that I know, it wasn't musicians. It was a Nazi scientist who took us into 440. Seems like they would know what they're doing because they looked into this kind of stuff.
Yeah, they looked at. I know that the information that was well known by Rudolf Steiner, he warned that mankind was using luciferic brightness or aromatic tones in music could bring a condensing greed forces in the West, by having a C prime of 128 hertz, which is basically a concert A of 132. So that's why they changed it, because he mentioned that Christ consciousness of ascended energy and the angel Michael sun tone energy in the collective awareness in the evolution of man. and so he considered 432 hertz to be a basically a sound in air that can be transferred, a harmonic of light.
Yeah, makes total sense. By the way, this is a part of this. I'll just throw it out there. You know, Ea Enki, in Egypt, he was known as Ptah. Back in Sumer, he was known as Ea was the name grandfather. Enki is a title. It's not even a name. It's Lord of the Earth. And his brother Enlil was Lord of the Sky. But that same intelligence has incarnated as Ptah after Egypt, and especially in the Sumerian clay tablets. It's like, well, what happened to this intelligence? And he started, if you know that the most ancient Nephilim bloodline intertwined into the Native American Indians, where else would he go than the Native American Indians? That's his hybrid bloodline. That's now, what I understand is the most numbers of the bloodline are in the Iroquois, but the Sioux have retained their star knowledge more so than any other tribe. But Cherokee and Iroquois are the exact same blood. They just separated at one point. You know, when I was working with A.R. Borden, he said, you know, to create matter, you not only need the right frequencies, but you need the right frequencies and the right sequences. A sequence of notes is a melody, it's a song, and that needs to be known before you can. The NSA calls it LERM, light encoded reality matrix. It's truly like in the Bible going apple, and an apple appears, you know, or bringing in different timelines, even mentally, by focusing and bringing in other realities. I spun out.
That's cool. That's cool. For people who do want to call in, I might mention it's up on the screen. The number is up on the screen right now. It's 929-436-2866. And you'll be prompted to put in another number. It's 522-657-2748. The lines are open. They've been open. So you can call in and...
It just hit me. See how things work?
Yeah.
The 432 stuff, if it takes sequences of specific frequencies, I'm saying, obviously it left a loophole to change the frequency wherever they wanted, but I've been told by upstairs that this was also a fail-safe so someone didn't just stumble across this sequence of proper frequencies. If everything was tuned to 432, what if Bob Dylan wrote a song that had the right sequences? It should be manifesting all around. I don't know. But it's really interesting, like the Arcturian ambassador said, when you take 440 and divide it by 12, you get 36.666666. It's not random. It has a whole line of sixes. So it's closest to a whole number that would create perfect geometry while still being an imposter. But I think they knew exactly what they're doing. They knew the effects of this frequency, because for someone saying, when we get to the end of this calendar, it might be a good idea that no one just stumbles across this sacred divine melody that truly, it's what Yahweh means, by the way, YHYW. They're musical notes. It's the person who had the Yahweh throne, had the tones of creation that they wielded, which we've met, by the way, for real. He's, again, he's intertwined into the Native American Indians right now. Very famous chief, actually. And it's really interesting because he's told people who he is. He's been on Ancient Aliens. Yahweh was known to the Cherokee and the Iroquois long ago as this Chief Yahweh, who sat in the middle of these two councils. There was a council of war chiefs and a council of peace chiefs. And when the veil dropped and we spoke, he said, Michael, I work with the 7 Lords of Light and the 7 Lords of Darkness. And I'm the only one who sits in the middle and holds a seat on both light and dark. Everyone else they're either light or they're dark. I'm the only one who holds a seat on both sides and have to give any initiate, because that council is in charge of kind of overlooking human evolution to see how we're doing, because we can get into that. The Anunnaki, in hopes of helping us be more prepared for this time where thoughts manifest almost in real time, that it would be good if we could work through some of our shadow collectively even. So they went to the table and said, well, what first, the whole ark myth, but then the Pleiadians said, well, we can look into the future and there's not enough time for mankind to work through the darkness that's unconscious. And every way of looking into the future, 99 out of 100 times, it doesn't end well. They just aim their nuclear weapons at each other and they blow themselves up. So why put this effort into saving mankind? Because Enki, even back in the Sumerian telling, he went to his mother's side, which is the Pleiadians, and said, isn't there something that can be done? Our race is going to let this beautiful upcoming race just, they're like, it must be God's will, let them perish. That wasn't cool with Enki, and he went. So they devised this plan to help mankind be ready. Well, the Pleiadians said, well, why do all this if they're not going to make it anyhow? So they went to the think tank, went to the table again, and they came up with this idea of, what if we made mankind experience its own mental energy in an accelerated fashion, both light and dark, exponentially and unbiasedly? Whatever you put out, you're going to get back. If it's fear-based, Chief told me, he goes, if you go before that council with fear in your heart, fear is what you'll experience first. That's what like Robert Bigelow experienced at the Skinwalker Ranch. By the way, we can get into that as well. Bigelow, the Pentagon secret UFO program that's been revealed exists, contacted me in 2011, telling me they know that I'm in contact with the real thing. They call it the trickster, which is a Native American Indian concept as well. But the reason I'm saying all this is this chief I'm talking about was on Ancient Aliens, and there's a clip of behind the scenes, and the producer for Ancient Aliens said, tell us what a chief is. And he said, well, not a lot of people know that there's 2 different kind of chiefs. There's peace chiefs and there's war chiefs. He said, this bonnet, I'm both. I'm the only one who's both. So he's telling them who he is. They just don't understand what he's communicating to them, that he is Yahweh. But yeah, we'll just end it with that.
Well, Dee in the chat says it sounds like Fibonacci tones have the same codes and numbers. And she also mentioned that they say that Iroquois, is that how you pronounce it? Yep. Helped conceptually. Huh?
Actually, Iroquois is actually a French word, and a lot of the Iroquois, I don't really care, but a lot of Iroquois think of it as kind of like, what's that called? Like a slang word that's not very nice. Their name for themselves is the Haudenosaunee, but yeah, people know them as the Iroquois.
Okay. She mentioned that the Iroquois helped conceptually with the U.S. Constitution. Dee says that she believes because they were connected to the galactic builder races.
Yes, exactly. The mound builders, who are the Atlanteans, who is the Anunnaki human hybrid bloodline, they intermingled into mainly the Iroquois. And look into Chief Cornplanter. Chief Cornplanter was the person George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin went to learn this experiment in democracy, because the Iroquois still have the oldest functioning democracy on this planet. And this is a very interesting story, because the Iroquois were not united for a very long time period. And it was this gentleman named the Peacemaker who came over from the Huron tribe in Canada. And he pretty much, the tribe of the Iroquois united behind a Mohawk warrior named Hiawatha. And they went and tried to take, in the story, I'm going to reveal something now too. This might piss off some people, but in the story,
Go right ahead.
how the peacemaker united those tribes, it's a male shaman war chief who wasn't going along with the deal. Well, guess what? The highest level of authority still to this day in the Native American Indians is the female. It's the grandmother. And so it wouldn't have been a male. Truly, this is White Buffalo Calf Woman that we're talking about. And she seen the darkness that had settled into these 5 tribes that became the Iroquois. There's 6 now, but the 5 tribes have been at war with one another, not only with one another, but internally, at war with themselves. Darkness had set in. And, White Buffalo Calf Woman was like, I see what you're about. I don't want nothing to do with what you're doing. And not only that, you're destroying this planet, which White Buffalo Calf Woman was a Pleiadian incarnation of Mother Gaia, and she doesn't take it very kindly to polluting the water and the air. And she still doesn't, I can tell you that. But Hiawatha united the tribes of the Iroquois to go and try to take her out. They went with the arrow, and they got their asses handed to them. Well, when they returned with their tail between their legs, that's when the peacemaker showed up from the Huron tribe. And what I'm telling you, any Iroquois that you go to and ask them, well, how did your tribes become a confederacy? How were they united? This is the story that they will tell you, is the peacemaker showed up, and he showed them a new way. Instead of attacking life's problems with the arrow, he said, here's the olive branch, and it's interesting too. I'm not Mormon, but the same story of the peacemaker, he overturned a tree, and all the warriors put all their weapons of war and thought forms of war and belief systems of war into the hole of the tree. And then at a certain point, the peacemaker turned the tree upright, and that marked the end of that time of darkness and strife, and they became united and lived in peace until the Europeans came, really. But it's interesting because, Ea was the peacemaker. Ea was from the Atlantean race. He is, Edgar Cayce called the Atlanteans the Poseidons. The Poseidon, or Aquarius, Inky was always denoted with water erupting from his shoulders. Or people like, why do they have man bags? It's like, it's not an Anunnaki man bag. It's a symbol that you're dealing with a water bearer. It's a bucket or pitcher of water, he was always shown. So Moroni, who told Joseph Smith where to go and get the tablets that became the Book of Mormon, the story in the Book of Mormon is he overturned a tree, and he told Joseph Smith, I've lived many lives as a Native American Indian. All this, no one knows any of this yet. I did just do an interview with the Canadian Public Broadcast System, and because I'm not only in the middle of revealing the Holy Grail Sangreal Anunnaki human hybrid bloodline, but the actual Hall of Records mound site that's unpilfered, it takes over a mile to walk around it. And I'm very excited that the truth of all this is coming to light, but it really bears importantly on what's going to happen with America. Because look at what America means: land of the plumed serpent, feathered serpent, it's plumed serpent for America and what it means. But that experiment in making mankind experience its own mental energy, the ending of that experiment, 27,000 year experiment, uh, it ended with America. It's like both light and dark go to the sidelines. Mankind gets a chance to show their stuff. And what are we going to do with our newfound freedom? And, well, we haven't done real well. I hate to, maybe diamonds in the rough or we made it. It's all that matters. But so Moroni, the peacemaker was about 700 years ago, but Chief Cornplanter, who was a chief of the Seneca, who had the land in Pennsylvania around the Kinzig Dam area, which was another Trail of Tears. In the 1960s, those Seneca were forcibly removed from their land in Pennsylvania. Why this is an issue is I can tell you, I know my incarnations now. My memory blocks have been removed. I was known as Chief Cornplanter. Chief Cornplanter is who I said our forefathers went to form America. And like Dee said, our Constitution is based on what they learned from Chief Cornplanter. What's really interesting is Chief Cornplanter, everyone out there, just type in Cornplanter Tract. The first treaty from the United States, between the United States and the Native American Indians, was what's called the Cornplanter Tract. And it has the signatures of George Washington and Benjamin Franklin, on that treaty. And it was because they viewed his help, guidance, because, they didn't know this we the people form of governance. This is what brought the Iroquois into peace and union. Then Chief Cornplanter of the Seneca gave it to George Washington. The Cornplanter Tract, what you're going to find out is the Seneca, Chief Cornplanter in particular, was given 1,500 acres in Pennsylvania, and the Salamanca in New York. That's where Niagara Falls is, by the way. People don't know Salamanca. Once you go to New York and go to Niagara Falls, you go by a sign that says you've now left the United States of America. You are no longer in New York. You are on Seneca land, and there's a toll being assessed for your travel through. You're being paid by the United States government. And this treaty was up in the late 1990s, and they had to redo the treaty or give Salamanca back to the Seneca. So it was $80 million was given to the Seneca right then and there, and $80 million goes, $800,000 goes back to the Seneca, and it was $80 million up front to lease back Salamanca in Niagara Falls. People don't know it's like a country within a country. Well, the same was true with the land in Pennsylvania. And Chief Cornplanter, because of the History Channel revealing I don't have normal human blood, I've tracked down, my ancestors are from Chief Cornplanter's people in Pennsylvania. The treaty says these people are not to be impinged upon. They are to be treated as a sovereign nation and very important to the creation of America. And that land in both New York and Pennsylvania forevermore is Chief Cornplanter's and his heirs. Very important. The treaty says, and his heirs. So in 1960, our government forcibly removed 600 Seneca from the Pennsylvania Kinzig Dam area and relocated them so they could make the Kinzig Dam, because truly they wanted hydroelectric power to give energy to Pittsburgh, because Pittsburgh was flooding and they knew the dam. But the Seneca said, listen, we have ways of stopping Pittsburgh from being flooded. You don't have to relocate us. But it also didn't need a dam. And here, our government just, it's like another Trail of Tears. They needed the hydroelectric energy so they could power. Pittsburgh was flooding. So all this time period of creating the dam and everything, they didn't have power. Pittsburgh was flooded. No coal, nothing would work. So they needed hydroelectric power. So that was a true reason why this happened. But I could tell you, the Anunnaki, this is their hybrid bloodline on the planet. I can tell you they care. And they've told me that when we move into the future with what people know of as Nazera, or, truly it's mankind going to become a galactic society. It won't happen with the form of governance that we have now with Trump or whatever. It's not going to be Putin. They will only move into the future and bring mankind into becoming a galactic society through the Native American Indian culture. Because not only that, the Native American culture, the grandmothers and the chiefs and the elders have the knowledge to use these mound sites to put their energy into better timelines and better outcomes for humanity. So all of this is going to be, I don't know how it's going to play out. I do have some lawyers behind me now that, I know where my great grandmother and grandfather's remains are. They're in a Mormon church, by the way. It's very interesting because this bloodline represents itself with what's called the fleur de lis.
Yep.
And
I know that very well.
Yeah, so it's interesting because I went into the first Mormon temple in Ohio. It's in Kirtland, Ohio. They have floral de lis everywhere. It's like they knew Moroni was of the floral de lis, Holy Grail bloodline. So they know. It's interesting because I just asked them, hey, how come this is, on everything? And they were very hesitant to give up that information. But yeah. That'll do for now. I know it's a lot.
No, that's okay. I was just going to ask, you made a reference earlier to Arcturians.
Mm-hmm.
What does the Arcturians have to do with the Anunnaki?
Good question, because you said, this guy's famous, by the way. He opened for the Rolling Stones for 60 shows, opened for David Bowie, very famous musician. And I was a fan of his in the 90s. And here, I'll tell you the story is when he opened for the Stones, he said he had this mental illusion that when you had that kind of money and that kind of fame, all your problems went away. He said they had more drama and bullshit in their lives than anything he'd ever seen. So he felt like he climbed to the top of this mountain to learn from someone, and there was no one there. Simultaneously, he got the gig to go and interview the Dalai Lama. And he said he met love, and so he took all the money he made, and he moved into a Tibetan monastery and lived with them for a while and just checked out. But we are like brothers now. And he said, when I first met him, a friend of mine knew I was a big fan of his. And he had come out of his seclusion and was doing an all-acoustic tour. And he didn't come to Cleveland, though. He went to Pittsburgh. And so my friend bought us tickets for that show. And when we went, there's only like 12 people in the place. It was just empty. And I'm such a fan. When he walked in, I'm like starstruck. I'm like, oh, it's him, So afterwards, we talk, and I asked him if I could buy him a drink. He said, yeah. And he said, do you know of anywhere I could get a room tonight? I don't even have a room booked. I said, well, we happen to have an extra spare bed. You are more than welcome to stay with us. It's within walking distance. He's like, good, I got some good weed. Next thing I know, my hero's in our hotel room, So about 3:00 in the morning, we decide we're going to find a place to go and get something to eat. I'm going to really shorten that story because some crazy stuff happened. this guy, he could go, this table's getting all cluttered up. Let me clean it up, and take a wine bottle and put a glass and then put some garbage and a crystal, another wine bottle, and went all the way up between the ceiling fan blades. We let go, and the whole thing was balanced. I was like, what the heck? But anyhow, we find a Korean food place that's open 24/7. So like 3 o'clock in the morning, we're walking through the streets of Pittsburgh, and out of nowhere, he goes, Michael, you have the bloodline. And I said, well, I know something, because the History Channel had just happened. I said, I know, they told me something about it, but I really don't know what it means. And he said, it's royal blood. And I said, well, I really don't know what that means. He said, I know, but you will. And at that point, we got to the restaurant, and we sat down. I said, well, wait a minute. How did you know about the blood anomaly? Did you see the History Channel show? He said, no. And then I'm really confused. Like, well, how do you know about this blood anomaly? He said, Michael, it's not coincidence you and I are talking, that I'm here to form the council of 150 of the ancients. And I'm here to meet and greet them as they awaken. And you're number 63. He said, I don't know how many of the bloodline are incarnated. It could be thousands, but the council of 150 is first come, first serve for awakeners. He said, everyone that I've met up to this date have been musicians, and I'm waiting for the quantum physicists to awaken. And I said, well, what happens when you reach the 150? He said, we're going to have a meeting. Thanks. I was waiting for a little bit more than that,
It's kind of what I said in the opening is like, we all know that this exists, but yet the scientists won't prove it valid until it can actually prove it to themselves. But we already know the people that are more open to this sort of information, in order to be able to receive the communications. We already know that this actually really happens, and this is real. This is not some woo-woo crap like you already said. And every show that I've had so far, I have come out and said, you know what? None of this crap, none of this information is woo-woo. If you go and research it for yourself, or experience it, or just
Well, I asked him that exact same question. I said, first of all, are you one of the 150? Are you one of the ancients? He said, oh, no, I could never say that. That would be egotistical. I'm like, wait a minute, man. That's weird, But I still to this day do not know why the Arcturian ambassador is in charge of forming the Council of 150 Anunnaki human hybrids.
I thought it was the council. So what's the Anunnaki Council of 12?
That is a whole other, this is a whole other council. The Council of 12, well, if there's 7 light and 7 dark, but there's Yahweh in the middle, or Enlil, who holds a seat on both sides, that leaves 6 on each side, really, because he's the only one who has a seat on both light and dark. That leaves 6 on each side. So it's a council of 12 with the 13th being Enlil in the middle, and he's the only one who holds a seat on both sides. And he said, Michael, because I'm the only one who holds the center position, I'm the only one who has to offer both sides of duality to any initiate. But when I understand everyone, because that council, if you had an experiment to accelerate human conscious evolution, you'd probably want a council to see how your experiment is going. Well, the dark's job is to see if they can get you to give your I am, your energy, away to an illusionary outside source. It's not allowed in higher realms. It's just that simple. So their job is to make sure no one gets through that would do that. So they dangle dark carrots in front of people to see if they can get you to bite. They're really good at it. They know what scares you, and fear is their main tool. But the 7 lords of light, it's the exact, and Yahweh said, Michael, this is all about self-inflicted suffering through one's own free will. He said, I never, because at the ceremony, some things are happening. I don't want to get into that much, but he said, I never told them they couldn't go and get a drink of water. They're doing this to themselves. But the seven lords of light are, if the dark is all about self-inflicted suffering through one's own free will, meaning they have no dominion unless you give them permission, by the way, just say no, right? But the light will, they're there to test any initiate that's brought before them, to see what kind of love and compassion you bring to any suffering that comes your way. It's the flip side of the dark, and really at this, they said all of us are brought before the Council of 12 with Enlil Yahweh in the middle upon our death. But certain people, while you're still alive, can be brought before the council, because if one person can get through the vetting, and I'll tell you what the secret was, is this was filled with Illuminati, flesh and blood sacrifice aspects. And part of their brainwashing was you never pray for rain. I didn't know this. This is afterwards he told me. He said because you want to suffer as much as possible. You need to be as hot as possible. So it's in the mind control to not pray for rain. Well, I seen my friends that had never participated in the ceremony. They were doing it for the first time. And the end of the second day, I prayed for rain out loud, just to end their suffering. Like I was, and said, that gives you a free pass by the light. Not only did you not succumb to the dark programming and didn't allow yourself to be sucked down that path, but you showed enough love and compassion for your fellow brother and sister to pray for them being alleviated from their... So once one individual passes both light and dark vetting, King Solomon, the dark has to fall away and do your bidding. And then the dark has to go and build your temple, They said that's what the grandmother was talking about. You are the rainbow we've been waiting for. They told me it only takes one, because if one person can do it, and it only took being a decent human being, don't be a dick. Excuse my language.
Go for
it. I really think, if I can do it, anyone can do it. And, and I didn't do it by myself. Like I said, I had friends there that I was talking to every night going, man, there's some crazy shit going on, because, the halls of Amenti, right? We're talking about the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, saying that when in the halls of Amenti is where you meet the council. And in the halls of Amenti, no longer is 12th dimensional beings in the 12th dimension. They're in the third dimension right there with you. And you experience them, which I did. Chief said, you're going to hear them call your name. You might even feel one of them grab your foot, lots of synchronicity. And like I like to say, some of us have synchronicity. Maybe one thing happens a day, then a day you get a day off, and then the next day another coincidence or synchronicity happens. Imagine when they just start escalating to the point where there's like 8 synchronicities in a half hour. Pretty soon it's like you're living inside the synchronicity. Going, whoa, wait a minute. But I prayed for rain and the storm came. By the way, I will send this to you. Someone that was just near these grounds filmed it. And I was outside the ceremony grounds with another dear friend. And after I prayed for rain, I way off in the distance looked like this little super energetic storm. It was filled with so much lightning. It was like Independence Day Hollywood movie or something. I was like, man, it looks like if it keeps coming this way, it's going to come right over us. But it was like hours away. So I went to bed in my tent. And sure enough, it parked right over the ceremony grounds. And it unleashed the most divine rain. And I can tell you, like I said, there was an aspect of the Illuminati dark that was there. And there was funk hanging in the air. And it was so hot. That's why I prayed for rain, because it was 100 degrees there. And they're not allowed to even stop dancing, and they're going without food or water. And this is all day. And I was even trying just to find some shade, so I couldn't imagine what it was like for them. So I prayed for rain. And that's night is when this storm came. And man, I was out dancing in it. It was absolutely beautiful. But as I said, the Sundance chief, being Yahweh, said, I have to give both sides to initiates, both light and dark. So he came out the next day, and I didn't even know I'd done anything wrong, He's going up to all the participants. Did you pray for rain? No, Chief, I didn't. Did you pray for rain? He'd go to the next one. He went all the way around the circle. And finally, when he got around and he was facing me, I raised my hand. Chief, I prayed for rain. He goes, Michael prayed for rain. That's what dropped the veil. And he said, we are so glad. Because, the next day when that happened, he pulled me into the chief's corner, which is just unheard of. People there were like, how come he had you come and sit, with the chiefs? And I don't know, because actually we discussed what's happening in the future and the game plan to help humanity. But instead of 100 degrees and this funk, it's like the rain purified everything. And not only did it purify, like it was like all the funk was taken out of the air, out of the atmosphere. But instead of 100 degrees, it was like 80 degrees. And the mist hung in the air from the rain. And it was beautiful. The next whole day it felt like you were on a tropical island. It was only 80 degrees. It's a big difference from Illuminati dark funk in the air and 100 degrees to all of that being gone. And that is called the Heyoka Day, Clown Day, by the way, as you were talking about.
Yep.
So that is being the halls of Amenti, the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, say when you are taken into the halls of Amenti, that's when all the dimensions collapse on one another and you're brought before the council, and they weigh the human soul to see if you're a clean vessel. And he said, I told him, I said, I respect your right to do what you're doing, but these are not my ways and I will not participate. And he said, Spirit is so glad that you said that, because Spirit looks at anyone who participates in these flesh and blood ceremony sacrifices as prostitute. And when he said that, he pointed right out to the people. The whole ceremony is Heyoka. They're looking for people that won't go along with it. It's crazy, but that's what happened. So I'll leave it there.
Absolutely. Dee said in the chat, aren't they all part of the tree of life? In other words, we were seeded by them all galactics in the Lyra star system who are in a 4D and above of state of being. And with that said, the reason why I brought up an Arcturian and why it relates to the Council of 12 and the Anunnaki is because I am an Arcturian.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
The Anunnaki, this multiverse is teeming with life.
Oh, yes, it
all
is.
Kinds of different life, different races of all kinds of different evolutionary phases. But the Anunnaki told me, don't get into hierarchy, because the acorn is no less significant than the giant oak it will one day become. These are just different. We all go through these cycles of evolution and going into a cocoon and coming out a butterfly into a new reality. But it's, tons of races out there, but there's one race that is intertwined with human history and evolution more so than any other race that there is, and it's the Anunnaki. You know, which really gets down to the Pleiadians, because you find out there's two different bloodlines that run through the Anunnaki. One is a Pleiadian Anunnaki hybrid bloodline, and that's because the king of their planet, his name was Anu, A-N-U. And Anu had a partnership with the Pleiadian queen. And that's pretty strange in itself. It's like, that's probably an interesting story. Like, why was that? Well, you start to understand that humanity is a Pleiadian soul carrier. And that, of course, she'd be very interested in what was going to happen to her children. You know, that's why her and the Anunnaki king became husband and wife, so to speak. Their firstborn child, his name was Ea, or Michael, by the way. They told me, the chief said, Michael, before you were known as Ea, you were known as Michael. I said, oh, cool, that's my name, so I can latch onto that. But the seven lords are mentioned even back in Sumer, and the seven lords are the seven archangels, which is weird because, again, I'm not. Now I'm starting to realize. They told me I am Saint Michael. I am here to show the ley line that goes through the UK, that's on the latitude line of 51.428. It's called St. Michael's ley line. This outside shape, when you look into Gnostic, it's the seal of the seven archangels in the crop circle itself. Does that mean anything to me? You know what? It doesn't. I'm totally okay with Mike. You know what I like to say is, I now know I've had so many names that names are pointless and useless. You know, what I truly am is nameless, but not voiceless. So it's a weird thing to me. I will take the name Michael because I realize it's important to a lot of other people. And if it creates a bridge from people to get from an old reality to the golden age, I'm okay with facilitating that. But my new name is Archangel Mike. Archangel, A-R-C, not A-R-K, by the way, or A-R-C-H. It's those that have the knowledge of the Ark of the Covenant that leads mankind into a new energy. That's what people say the Ark of the Covenant is anyhow. It contained this new energy form. Well, I can prove it. I have the proof from NASA with scientific photographs of energy coming in from another dimension. Not only, I got 6 photographs at water control, not treated, then 6 more photographs at 15 minutes on a disc. A half hour, another 6 photographs, 50 minutes. And what NASA said is, we've never seen this in water studies ever before. That, yeah, you can pray on water, you can send it through magnets, you can vortex it, but all those, yeah, it brings back energy. But the periphery of the light pattern gets more diffuse and bigger. They said this, it brought back the energy, but the longer the scientists left the water on one of these discs, that the more focused the light became, like a laser beam. She said it's kind of like if you took a magnifying glass and you're going to burn a leaf, right? And you got the circle on the leaf. As you pull it up, the circle gets smaller and smaller and smaller until it combusts and it lights. She said for the first time ever, that this technology is turning the light within the water molecule into a laser beam of energy. And she said, I don't think it's even done at 50 minutes. She said, I would recommend every night put a glass of water on the disc and let it stay overnight and then drink it. in the morning, which I've started to do that. But the fact of the matter is, it only takes 7 seconds to revitalize the water. It's almost instantaneous. But I guess we should get into how this is quantum entangled.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
The name of the show. Chief Golden Light Eagle contacted me and said, you going to Florida isn't by accident. That the first fountain of youth, fresh spring, that was brought up in Florida was because Chief White Buffalo Calf Woman, her Erie Montauk tribe was in East Lake, Ohio. And as I said, Hiawatha went with the arrow and tried to take her out. She wasn't going along with a plan of union to become America, So the Peacemaker, first of all, in that story, that chief moved away from her people and moved to a place of alligators and snakes and swamps. And that ain't the Great Lakes area. No one knows it was Florida. So the Peacemaker had to travel to the bottom of Florida. This is the chief telling me this.
Yep.
That the Peacemaker was another one of your incarnations, he told me. And I went there in the past to bring union to the Iroquois. I had to travel all the way to the bottom of Florida, he told me. And in Miami, that's where the first Fountain of Youth is. I know exactly where it is, but I'm only one of 3 people on the planet that knows. He said, I was taken by a Seneca Iroquois chief to that because, he said, Ea, or Peacemaker, went to Florida to bring fresh drinking water to his mother, White Buffalo Calf Woman, Mother Gaia, because when she fled to Florida, it was surrounded by oceans. At that point, there was no spring aquifers under Florida that is natural, clean spring water. I'm just telling you, this is a story that no one knows yet, and it is from the elders of the Native American Indians. He said, I was taken to that Fountain of Youth water. I wasn't allowed to take any water out of it, but we were allowed to bathe our shamanic healing instruments, whether it was a feather or a shaker or a rattle, whatever.
Yeah.
And then that instrument, being a medicine man, when we went back out into the real world, would bring forth the attributes of divine holy water out into the real world. He said, Michael, this is your shamanic tool. You are a medicine man. The only thing that makes something a shamanic healing tool is it has to be made by your own 2 hands. I played this into existence. It's my guitar, and this is my creations. He said, you have the ability now to spread this worldwide, whereas in the past, my reach was who I could fan down with my feather. This you could send out all over the planet. And he said, once you do this water blessing ceremony, which he told me my job was to start going to all these underground aquifer freshwater springs in Florida. Guess what was the name of the first spring I went to do this water blessing? Rainbow Springs. So I did the blessing ceremony, and he said, now anything that contains this image, both forwards and backwards in time, he said, would emit the frequency of divine holy water. And they said, this is what they told me is this is it on a pendant that I've created. They said, this is actually, see if I can get it in the light.
There we go.
They said, yeah, if you put this under your glass, it will restructure the water that's in the glass. But guess what? We're made of water. And on a cellular
So
level,
have you made something that is as big that you could stand on?
yes. I make 6-inch versions of this, which is big. But anything, I've started making clothing. Because now I know anything that holds it. Because what he said was, you know what? This will bring back this type of energy. This is a droplet of water. Imagine every cell in your body, every droplet of water having this type of energy instead of a little tiny pinprick of energy from, because we're killing our water. We send it down hundreds of miles of pipe. Then we put chlorine in it, we put fluoride in it, and we're killing our water. They said most people were dying when we're 60 or 70 because we're truly dying of dehydration.
Yep.
Our bodies are not getting the energetic level it needs. So I can tell you what happens is when you have this on a cellular level, guess what it does to your immune system? In this crop circle, you can see, these lines of, it's ASCII binary code actually. But there's a number sequence, a 7-digit number sequence. And you find out when you type that in, tell you what it is when I find it. It's 3 3 4 4 4 4 5. When you type that in, you find out it's a gene in our human DNA that is to what's called a universal stress protein. That the more of that protein that's in the human blood, your body will be able to handle outside stressors such as viruses and such as increased solar activity and solar energy. So what they're telling me is once you make 432 water, it brings your immunity goes through the roof. I can tell you, I don't usually get into the health benefits of this.
I mean, and of course, the vibrational frequency that you put out, that you've obtained inwardly, is extremely high. I know this because I'm like this all the time. People are like, hang on, you're human. You should be this and you should be that and you should be experiencing the human experience. Well, yes, I am experiencing the human experience, but my vibrational level is at an extremely high frequency, which is why I relate so much to 10,000 hertz, is because my frequency is through the roof. And in my ascension process, I did, in fact, of course, Arcturians are 5D dimensional beings. I have reached so far in my ascension process to 8D. And let me tell you, that's a hell of a lot of fun.
Right? How does that manifest in your real world?
In the real world?
Yeah, even
people who do go.
What does it look like?
Multidimensional people tend to be, just my observation from my experience, you tend to be a lot happier than usual. You tend to have an openness to receive more than usual, and everybody around you tends to fall away. Not only that, and I mean in coincidental ways, and not only that, those people that do are around you think that you've gone absolutely loony and crazy.
It's interesting because, man, I feel like the Forrest Gump of all this. You know what I mean? To me, it feels really 3D.
Yo, yeah.
It's just, but crazy shit's happening. Yeah, I'm talking with Yahweh, but man, it feels.
And in terms of when you just mentioned about synchronicities before, I'm like, yeah, I have synchronicities and coincidences every single day. I've been like, my life is certainly not mundane. I mean, I can sit in this, where I'm sitting right now, and you and I are talking and conversing right now. I can be sitting here all day long, and I guarantee you something is going to happen. Something always happens. And it's like, what the hell? I wasn't supposed to be receiving that, but okay, I'll just go with it. Whatever, trust the process.
It's almost like cosmic winks. I think, all I can say is I really like the good surreal stuff, then the dark's the real stuff.
Oh, I mean, for me, what I do as a profession, I mean, I like working with the dark. I really do. In fact, that is what I mean. It's funny. It's funny that I even mention Arcturian because Arcturians work with the dark, and because they are the intelligence that they have. Is used to help lift humanity, to raise it to a 5D consciousness. So,
well, yeah, that stuff needs to be transmuted. There's only one way. That's what I heard is they told me the Anunnaki know energy creates reality. So dark energy, there's only one way. And that, how do you transmute a negative thought form? Well, you live it. It's going to come up in your reality for you to choose love over fear. And once you've done that, you will transmute that energy into its higher octave, and you'll be done with it.
I know that I've told a story quite a few times about back about last not March, just gone last year, March. I actually absorbed so much negative energy into my body that I actually started producing electric energy that could be emitted from my hands. In fact, when I was brushing past objects, people, and things like that, I was electrocuting people.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's funny. It's funny when you talk about frequency and vibration and whatnot. There's different outlets. You produce it through music. I produce it by absorbing and emitting it, and pretty much ejecting it out of my body, and it ejects out into the thin air, to basically vanish itself. It really does. In the chat over here, Dee said, I do alchemy with symbols and drink tachyonized water. Totally get this. I believe that this is holding energy. Took pictures of water. It has energy. The water doesn't have life, so you can give it life with frequencies that come from combined crystals. Also, alchemy of frequency from shapes, colors, and vibratory frequency as well. And thanks, Dee. I got your message. Shungite. She just recommended me Shungite.
That's really important. I heard a cool story I'll share with Shungite. This lady worked for a phone company, and she, just by her job, the telephone line holds a lot of current, and she would get zapped, and it would make all of her muscles constrict, and she would have to go have muscle, massage to get her arm working again. She said she was gifted a Shungite bracelet, and she was wearing it, and she got discharged by the electricity again, and it went to her wrist, and it didn't go any further. The Shungite just absorbed it all. So she said, well, I'm still going to go, have the guy check it and do the massage. He's like, no, it did not go anywhere else.
Yeah, people, when I tell that story that I have absorbed so much energy in my body that I've caused objects to electrocute itself, people to electrocute. I've electrocuted people. I'm like, okay, I'll test every known theory to see, dry air. What am I wearing? What clothes? Does it cause static electricity? Every scientific reason. I'm like going, no. So maybe I don't know. Maybe I do have the gift of transmutation through absorption of energy. Who absolutely knows? But I do know that I do have to severely, once I do go through that process, I have to severely ground myself.
Right on. Yeah, you're happy and you beam good energy. That's the only thing I think we can, I don't even want to say judge someone, but first of all, they've told me you can tell the level of person that you're dealing with by how they treat animals. Mm-hmm. One thing, but also, are you happy? And what else is there to look into? I like to say you're either a good hang or you're not.
Yeah, no, I have, people, and this in fact, it's funny you say, vibratory radiation because, when I am around people, it's really really weird. It's highly noticeable, highly noticeable that people just instantly change their mood just like that. But this is how I am all the time.
Is it for the better, or do they seem like they get happier, or
No, they get happier.
people kind of spin out around you?
Oh no, they get happier.
I had the opposite. It really bummed me out because I'm like, I felt like I got through my own stuff, but then it just seemed like it moved out one circle, and all my friends and family were being tweaked. And I really thought, like, well, this sucks. I don't know if I can handle this, because I'd rather go through it myself than see my loved ones go through trial and tribulation. And it wasn't until I met another galactic person. He said, dude, you need to control your energy field. Said, dude, your energy
never tell a person who emits that much energy out to control that energy, because it goes the total opposite.
It's interesting because I never even really thought about it, but he said, if you go to a party and resonant frequency, right? If there's a higher frequency in a room and there's a lower frequency, that lower frequency will try to match the higher frequency. He said, in this case, the only way to raise your own frequency is to weed out the dark from your own belief system. So he said, if you don't learn to control your energy field, he said, anyone, unless you like being around insane people, is what he said, your energy is causing them to flip. Like, they might not even know why, but since they're in your presence, they're going to try to match your frequency, and they'll start transmuting shadow, and they'll go, they don't even know why. All they know is when they're around you.
Which is why I like working. This is the very reason why I like working with people that have very, very low frequencies, is because I'm already at a very, very high frequency. And so, yeah, you're very right, very right.
I didn't know that, and it actually took that feeling of, well, shit, the dark just moved out a rung around me. When I started to be able to realize, especially being a musician and going into concert halls and whatever, he taught me, snap that energy to you like it's a skin suit. Physically, mentally, not only now it's not going out 3 houses in every direction. It's bam, it's millimeter nanotechnology, and truly you become a shining one, right? It's another word for Anunnaki. But sometimes he said, if you go to a party, they might not want to be focusing on how to better themselves. They just want to relax and have a good time. And,
and I mean, again, it's all about free will. So you'd have to want to be able to pick up the trend. I mean, because there's a lot of people out there that just want to stay there at their low frequency, and it's like, okay, you can stay there. All your dreams and aspirations and everything else that comes in between, you're gonna sit there miserable. It's like I wrote a quote just recently. It's not my quote, but I put up a meme that I make memes all the time. And I put up a meme and said, don't be afraid for your life to end. Be afraid that it will never begin.
Right on. I love memes. I think it's a really great way, a new form of communication.
So is GIFs.
What's funny though? For a very long time, I had no idea what a meme was. I'm like, what the hell's a meme?
Meme. It's like you can. I know. I've had an entire conversation just using GIFs.
Yeah.
GIFs are really, really good. GIFs can tell a whole story without even saying a damn thing.
It's fun stuff.
Well, with that said, Michael, we're going to finish up the show. Is there anything else you wanted to say before we do finish up?
If you want to look into anything that we've spoken about in more depth, my website is michaelleehill.net. And please check out the blog. That's my favorite part of my website is, being able to share what I've learned from those not from here. It's my blog, to get as detailed as I want, but try to keep it concise.
Mm-hmm.
So check that out.
Are your discs available for sale? Do you make them for people?
Yes. Yeah. Which is, this was never how I intended. I'm a musician, but I had to learn the business side of things. And I've actually, for the longest time, I'd make about 10 of these. But now seems like this technology's got the green light from above. In March, I had over 300 orders. So it was a big jump from doing 10 a month to 300. Most of those orders were multiple disc orders. So I've had to streamline, for the longest time, I was handwriting all the envelopes, where they're going. So now I got into the future, and I print labels from my office. And I'm like, yeah, business guy now. But yeah, they are available. And again, my videos can be found at YouTube, Michael Lee Hill. And that's about it. I guess one thing I want to say is so many spiritual, so-called enlightened people throw the Nephilim and the Anunnaki under the proverbial bus and put them as the ones that are holding the reins behind the secret societies, the skull and bones, and keeping humanity enslaved. Once you learn that the oldest Nephilim bloodline, Anunnaki human hybrid bloodline on this planet, comes in through the Native American Indians, what does that have to do with secret societies? Nothing. They had no part of it. Matter of fact, the Native American Indians have suffered under the wheels of that dark machinery more so than any other race on this planet ever. Some people put it as high as 100 million Native American Indian, men, women, and children were genocided, So, I guess keep an open mind, because the truth hasn't been told of who the Nephilim truly are. And half of it, there's a reason that the dark Anunnaki are doing what they do, and it's transmutation. It stuff has to be brought up for the individual to transmute so they can get over it. But that's all. Just there's a a half truth is no truth at all. There's a whole nother side of the story, and that is Inky's side, and Inky's hybrid bloodline on this planet comes in through the Native American Indians.
Absolutely. And your website again?
michaelleehill.net.
Okay.
So remember, it's not .com. Funny story, the NSA still owns .com.
Wow. What don't they own? That's another story in itself. But can people find you on Facebook or social media?
If I'm up to my 5,000 friends, I'm not allowed anymore.
Oh.
So silly. But if you do contact me through personal messenger and say, I would like to be part of your Facebook family, I will add you. I'm going to go through, and obviously there's a lot of people that I don't even think they really exist. So I will get you added, but don't send me a friend request, because I'm at 5,000 and I have over 1,000 friend requests waiting right now, and I'll never get it. So, but if you personal message me, welcome aboard.
Absolutely. Also, just before we finish up, D on the chat here is asking, I'm assuming your info is all on the website?
Yes.
Okay. And the second question she's asked, who were you visited by? Yellow Feather?
Which visit?
I'm not 100% sure who she's referring to.
It's interesting because Yellow Hand is Yeshua, or Jesus, and I'm dear friends with him. He stayed in my house recently, and he's known as Yellow Hand to the Native American Indians.
Okay.
So it's interesting with the yellow feather.
Absolutely. Well, I will put all your details up on the YouTube and Facebook archive for people to refer back to. This archive will be available for everybody to re-listen to in their own leisure. That's absolutely fine. But I do want to thank you, Michael, for coming on to my show this evening.
Thank you.
It's been
a
an
pleasure.
absolute pleasure. Yeah.
I was talking to like minds.
Yes, exactly. And you're more than welcome to come on at any time again. My show is open to you anytime. But until then, I will let everybody know you can find me at soma-fusion.com. You can find me at the Global Enlightenment Radio Network.com website or somafusionmedia.com. You can go on to my websites. You can find all my books that I've published. You can find all the work that I do. You can find, and please do, if you are interested in the 30-day mindfulness challenge. Well, actually, no, it's not 30 days. It's 21 days. 21-day mindfulness challenge. It does start up on Monday. So I need people, if you are interested in it, go to the website, soma-fusion.com, go to the Soma Fusion Academy link and sign up for it. It is completely free. It is, like I said, it starts on Monday. You will need to download the app for it. And we can go from there. And, I would gladly love to have you as a student of mine or somebody that's in the Soma Fusion Academy community. Like-minded people, we all grow as a community, right? But until then, guys, I wish you a very safe, calm, harmonious evening. And next week, next Wednesday at 9 o'clock, as usual, at the same time every week, we will have on Dr. Frank May, and we'll be talking about shamanism and health. So I hope you're going to come and join me next week. Be fair, be square, and have a wonderful evening. Good night to all.